Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Abby and I like to talk about spooky things. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 33 terrifying TikToks. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and most Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. And without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikTok is by the user J Clay, who had a weird experience in the middle of the night.
Last night I had something I don't know how to explain, so I'm just going to explain it here. Some of you will believe, some of you won't. I know what I experienced. Last night I fell asleep on my couch. Not uncommon. I woke up at 2:22. Not uncommon for me. I felt like something was watching me, which is also not uncommon, from my bathroom directly across from my couch. So I looked, I didn't see anything, so I got up and I went to bed. I went to bed and I fell asleep and I woke up at 3:33, which also isn't uncommon for me. But this is where it gets a little, and I'm actually like kind of starting to shake from this. I woke up and I knew I was awake, I knew I wasn't dreaming, and at the foot of my bed there stood this tall, probably like 7-foot, blue-like human with the features that resembled a bird. It wasn't a full bird, but I'm literally like out of breath thinking about this. And I wasn't scared, but the only thing I can explain is nothing was said, but I had the feeling of kindness, love, except it was just an overwhelming sense of peace. So I just looked at it for a little bit and then I fell back asleep. And I wasn't sure I was going to share this because now I've been down the rabbit hole trying to figure out what this was. But if anyone knows, please drop it in the comment. Help me figure out what this could have been. And I guess for entertainment purposes so we can get some answers.
I'd say it's a good sign that he wasn't afraid of the thing. The fact that he felt a sense of peace, also a good sign. I think regardless, the first impression of seeing anything unexpected in your room would be unsettling and kind of scared. But the fact that that immediately adjusted and became more positive feelings is something that we do not hear about very often. I wonder if maybe it was some kind of a sign that he either hasn't picked up on or just wasn't willing to share with us. Or if it's potentially like a family member visiting him that, again, he either didn't pick up on or isn't willing to go into detail about. I also have no idea what kind of a creature or entity this would be classified as. I guess I'm just glad that it didn't turn into a horrifying experience and I guess left him with wonder. Our next TikTok is by the user Proud Viking 2. Now, this story is crazy to me. This woman was in the hospital after having lost her son, and she made a very important friend.
Do you believe in ghosts or angels? Let me tell you about an encounter I had. I was 8 months pregnant with my son when he passed away. And I ended up having to go to the hospital to have an emergency C-section. And while I was in the holding room before you go in for surgery, a woman approached wearing brown corduroy pants and a flowered print blouse. And she began talking to me, asking if I was doing okay considering the situation, explained what the surgery was going to be like, and started going through my medical records. I thought she was a social worker or a chaplain volunteer or something. She wasn't wearing scrubs, so I didn't think she was a nurse or a doctor. She was just wearing civilian clothes. I went in for surgery, and when I came out, I woke up and I see her standing there flipping through my paperwork. I started coughing. She immediately turned around, grabbed a pillow, put it across my stomach, and pushed down on my stomach, because the pain was excruciating. And she said whenever I had to cough, make sure I put a pillow across my stomach and held it tight because it would make it feel better. I remember I asked her if I still had my uterus, and she said I did. And she continued to just talk to me about the loss of my son. Another nurse came up, asked if I was okay, or a nurse came up and asked if I was okay. And I said yes, considering the situation, I was doing okay. And she said it was very smart of me to put the pillow on my stomach. And I was like, do you not see this chick standing here? The nurse went away. And I looked at the lady. I said, I don't know your name. And she said, my name's Ever. I said, oh, that's a pretty name. It's unusual. I've never heard anybody named Ever before. That's pretty cool. So we continued talking about my son. They went to bring me back up to my room, and she followed with me. And then she got confused in the mess of people that were up there, and I didn't see her again. It was the next day. I was in the room alone with my in-laws, and Ever walked in. And I woke up because I was sleeping. I woke up to her rubbing my feet. And I said, Ever, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming to visit me. I could tell she had tears in her eyes, and I asked her what was wrong, and she said that she had been in the hospital 11 weeks prior and had a baby, but the baby was having problems, not surviving, but thriving, I guess you could say. So she had been in and out of the hospital for 11 weeks dealing with her own baby. And she just said, you are so strong. I can't believe how strong you're being through this. And I said, well, you kind of don't have a choice. You know, it's either break down hysterically or stay strong. She started crying. I called her over to me, and we ended up hugging for a long time. She ended up leaving, and that was the last I saw of her. So after I got out of the hospital, I ended up doing a stint in ICU for blood clots. But when I got out, I kept thinking about Ever. So I painted a wine glass for her that had a heart with 2 angel wings on it with her name at the top. It just said Ever. I also had a pair of angel wing earrings. And I brought them to the hospital, and I went up to labor and delivery, and they said that they didn't know anybody by the name of Ever. And I said, okay, maybe she was a chaplain volunteer. So I go to the chapel. They didn't have any volunteers by the name of Ever. Went to social services. No one by the name of Ever worked there. So I take my butt to HR, because I was like, I know there's a woman named Ever that works here. I go to HR, and they check, and they said, we have no employees or volunteers that work here by the name of Ever. Now, I'm pissed, because I know I'm not crazy, and I'm not losing my mind. So I go back up to labor and delivery, and I'm like, listen, her name is Ever. She had a baby 11 weeks ago. They've been trying to keep the baby alive for 11 weeks. She comes here all the time. And she helped me when my son passed. Now you have to know who she is. Both the nurses got really quiet, and there was an older nurse there. Comes around the corner of the nurse's station and grabs me by the arm and says, walk with me. We walk down the hallway and around the corner, and she looks at me. She goes, honey, I know who Ever is. And I was like, oh, thank God someone finally knows who Ever is. She said, honey, Ever was here 11 weeks ago and did have a baby, but she didn't make it through childbirth. She passed away. I could feel the blood drain from my body. I said, what do you mean she passed away? She was here. This is what she looked like. She said, yes. She goes, you're describing her perfectly. She goes, I think Ever came to you because of the trauma that you were going through with the loss of your son. But Ever passed away 11 weeks ago. So I went home and I took the glass that I had made for her and put it in my kitchen window. And I just sat there thinking about it, and I called my in-laws because I know my in-laws were there. I said, do you remember her? And she goes, honey, we thought you were just high on morphine because you were talking to someone, but there was no one there. Oh my God. So I ended up taking the candle, or the candle holder, the glass that I had painted, and where it said Ever, I put 4. So I would always remember that it was forever, and just kept that as a memory. It took me weeks to realize that I had painted forever an angel in my heart. It blew my mind. I'm devastated because the glass ended up breaking when I was going through a divorce and moving my stuff. I broke the glass, which devastated me, and I lost the earring somewhere along the way. But that's my story of Ever, the spirit that came to visit me when my son passed away.
As soon as she said that the woman wasn't a nurse, I knew exactly where this was going. And I think it is such a sad but sweet story. I mean, this woman hanging around the hospital after she passed, still watching over her son in the NICU, and kind of being there for and being a friend to her as she was going through a similarly devastating experience. And honestly, I feel like she must have been such a wonderful woman. The fact that even in death, she is here comforting someone who lost their child and being a friend to them when they're going through such a difficult time. I'm sure her kindness really made all the difference in the situation. And if I were her, I would never forget that moment, which obviously she hasn't. I think this is such a beautiful story. Our next TikToks by the user Mrs. Creepy. Now this is a very frightening video to watch. On the screen it says, neighbor watching ring camera sees tall unknown creatures lure person into forest at night. Just to point out the obvious, this for sure could be a fake video, like a set up video, real people doing this just for views. That is a very real possibility and probably the most likely scenario here. But I do want to point out the fact that if this was real, and hey, can't rule it out completely, the recording time says 3:34 a.m. So this happened during the witching hour. But another thing I want to point out that almost proves the validity of this video is the shape of the legs. All 4 of the legs in this video come to almost a point. They're unnaturally skinny to begin with, and then their ankles are like nothing. Like their legs almost go in a triangle-like shape down to the ground. To me, it looks less like a creature luring a person into the forest versus 2 creatures just going into the forest. Although obviously the shorter one, which I would assume represents a child, looks more human than the other, given that it has hair. The other one just looks like a faceless person. Granted, it does look like it could be a mask, the way it kind of has a line at this section of their head. So I'd say most likely, probably this is not a real video. However, it really does throw me off the shape of the legs. As I'm looking at this, another thing I did not notice before, and you guys might not have noticed either, I've literally watched this video like 5 times and didn't notice this until now. There is someone in the back waving them into the forest. And they also appear to be not exactly faceless, but very uncanny. It definitely does not look like a human face. Again, I still don't think exactly that the one with long hair is exactly a person, although maybe it could be given the fact that it has hair and the other 2 don't. But just the way that the legs are as unnaturally skinny and pointy, like the creature that it's walking next to, makes me think that it is also one of those creatures. So what do you think? Are these skinwalkers caught on camera, or is it a setup? The next TikTok is from the user AbbeyStorySubmission, and in this one we see the most adorable little boy spotting something that we cannot see. Cheese! Cheese! What you doing? What you see? What? What do you see? Hi. Who are you saying hi to? Who are you saying hi to? Dude, you need to stop that. You're freaking me out. Come on. The way he just stopped and looked up, he was fully registering something. There is no doubt about that to me. I really do think that he saw something, and it is comforting to see that he is saying pawpaw like it's his grandpa or something and not some weird random entity in the house. He also doesn't seem scared at all, which is another good sign. But honestly, it doesn't seem like it is anything scary. I would be freaked out if I were the mom, for sure. Like, what are you looking at? Same thing when, you know, your dog barks out into an empty hallway in the middle of the night. Like, what are you doing? But to me, it is very obvious that he sees something. I don't doubt that at all. I think there was definitely something there, and it seemed to be visible to him. Our next TikTok is with user Morg's Haunting, who talks about the tapping in Appalachia.
Something that I do not hear mentioned a lot when it comes to talking about Appalachian folklore is the knocking and the tapping. Things that lurk around in the dark woods outside will do many things to get your attention, and one of those things is knocking on your door. A very direct approach if you ask me, but it does work a lot of the time. But they don't just stop there. They will knock on your window. They will knock on the side of your house. They will knock on everything at once. It will sound like it is coming from all directions. I've actually received a lot of stories where that has happened to people. And the reason they do this is because they know that knock is something most people cannot ignore, whether it be a pet trying to get back in the house or someone coming over to visit. Most of the time, if you hear a knock on the door, you are investigating that knock. So my piece of advice is, unless you know someone's coming over, don't go investigate it. And if you do go investigate it, be so sneaky about it and make sure you keep yourself calm. And even if you don't believe in folklore type things, that could be a person. And if a person is knocking on your door, your window, and your walls in the middle of the night, you don't need to go investigate that anyways, okay? That's not your business either. Bless you, baby. Our little sneeze. So yeah, ignore the tap. Gigi, are you alright? She's allergic to my voice. Ignore the tapping, always. It's not your business.
I think a general rule of thumb, no matter where you live, whether it's in Appalachia, whether it's on the West Coast, whether you're in Europe, an entirely different continent from the one that Appalachia resides in. If you hear tapping coming from nowhere, if you hear unexplainable tapping, knocking, just ignore it. You hear whistling coming from nowhere, just ignore it. You hear your voice being called when you know you're home alone, or coming from outside when it's dark out, ignore it. Do not let negative entities trick you into following them, trying to figure out what it is. Do not fall into their trap. That is exactly what they're hoping you will do. If you hear something, no you didn't. If you see something, no you didn't. Do not let yourself get sucked into a dangerous situation by a potentially dangerous entity. Our next TikTok's with user Into the Further, who tells us about a time she saw something impersonating her brother.
If you're easily scared, don't watch this at night. Personal spooky story time, and we're gonna call this one That Wasn't My Brother. When I was about 18 years old, I had gone out, and I had a very strict dad growing up. If you're Mexican or Hispanic, you know, my curfew was at midnight. Thankfully, my sister would cover for me, and she would hide pajamas in the restroom. That way, if I got home late, I would go straight to the restroom, I would change, and if he caught me coming home late, I was already in my pajamas, and I'd be like, what do you mean I was in the restroom? So this specific night, I get home past my curfew, I go straight to the restroom, I use the restroom, wash my face, brush my teeth, put on my pajamas. The way that our house is set up is a long hallway, restroom, my bedroom, my brother's bedroom. But as you're walking to the bedrooms, the living room is right here. So as I'm walking to my bedroom, the house is dark as hell. Our front door has glass and the porch light kind of gleams in. So I'm walking to my bedroom and I happen to look in the living room. Right in front of our front door, I see a little boy. And he's standing there. But what's crazy is the way that he's standing in this perfect spot, the light cuts off right here. So I can see from here down, but I can't see his face. His face is literally black. Like I can't see any features. I can't see nothing. I'm not exactly sure what he's wearing, but it looks like overalls or something like that. My first instinct isn't, oh my God, that's a ghost. My instinct is, what the hell is my brother doing awake right now? So I stand there and I'm calling for my brother. I'm literally like, Eric. My brother's name is Eric. So I'm whispering and I'm like, Eric, trying to make sure that my parents don't hear me because it's about 3 a.m. and my brother is just standing there. And I'm like, God. Eric! Nothing. No movement. Nothing. So I'm literally standing there for what feels like forever, waiting for my brother to cut his shit out and fucking go lay down because I'm about to get my ass kicked. And he's just standing there. So now my wheels are turning and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And when I tell you this is the most I've ever been scared, like I was shook. I was shitting myself. I decide, okay, I'm going to go to my brother's room. Turn on my flashlight. I'm looking and my brother is asleep in his room. I was so scared. I didn't even go back to my room. Like I was freaking out. I've talked about my mom's house being haunted before. What's crazy is that it's inexplainable because my dad built their house. I'd understand if it was like an older house or something like that, but it was a new house. Like I have not done any research on the land, if there used to be something there, if something happened there. I have not done any research, but I have seen and heard so many things inside that house. It is fucking haunted. It wasn't a mimic because now that I think about it, this little boy was definitely younger than my brother, and we've seen him many times. He loves to play peekaboo. We have 2 living rooms in my parents' house, and my mom was always in the smaller living room in her recliner, and a wall separates both living rooms with a half moon, and she says that she'd be there in the morning and this is the wall and she could see the little boy like peeking, and when my mom would go and look, he'd kind of like, or if this is the wall, he'd kind of like, you know. But at least it's a friendly ghost. If you guys have any spooky stories that you'd like to share with me, please send them via DM or email and I'd love to read them. And I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Knowing that I spent so much time standing there, essentially in a vulnerable place because I wasn't expecting to have to protect myself potentially, like being vulnerable and interacting with this thing for so long, not realizing what it was, would scare me to death. Knowing that I was literally just standing there, like opening myself up to this thing without having any idea is so frightening. I really hate mimics pretending to be family members. Obviously, it makes perfect sense from an evil standpoint because that's who you let your guard down around the most. That's a way to trick you into feeling secure, and that's how they get to you. So it makes perfect sense why they tend to do it. But I hate it so much. And it seems like we are hearing more and more of these stories these days. And there's no real good solution to this, like ignoring whistling or knocking or whatever. Because what are you going to do? Ignore your family members your whole life just in case it's a mimic? That's not even remotely reasonable, because what are the odds that that actually happens? Probably very slim. But obviously not none, because it does happen. So there's really no good way to prevent this. I guess it's just good to be aware when you first notice signs of something being off, and maybe that it's not the person you think it is. Take it seriously instead of just like standing there and being like maybe consider the possibility a little bit sooner than you otherwise would have. But yeah, I mean, it's really scary how they try and take advantage of your comfortability with your family. Our next TikTok is by the user Blandford Paranormal, who shows us a voice he caught in one of his recent investigations.
A dot in my hand and tell me what your name is. How old are you?
I'm shy.
What?
To me, clear as day, it sounds like a child saying, "I'm shy." It sounds freakishly clear. And I really wish the video wouldn't have cut off before we heard what the spirit also had to say at the end. But this video really gives me the heebie-jeebies. At this point, after having consumed so much paranormal material, I do not trust child spirits because they have a tendency to not actually be children and to be demons. Again, trying to let you get your guard down because you think it's a child, so you're not concerned, and that's how they get you. So, anytime I hear of a child spirit or see one, it freaks me out because I don't know whether it is a real child or something pretending to be one. And part of me wonders if maybe this is something just pretending to be a child, given how clear and concise that answer was. Seems almost as if it's trying to trick him into letting his guard down. Our next TikTok is by the user Katrina Faye Kelly. She tells us about a ghost encounter she had while working in a hospital.
Okay, I have a ghost story to tell you. I'm in a new hospital and I was walking around and it's empty and it's kind of creepy, and I heard some noises and I started thinking about all the different like ghost stories that I have from years of working in ICU. But the creepiest story that I have, sorry about that noise, it's loud but I can't turn it off. The creepiest story that I have. So I worked in a hospital that the unit that I worked on had never been anything but a cardiovascular ICU, or cardiothoracic. It was hearts and lungs, and heart transplants, total artificial heart, lung transplants, anything cardiac related. So on this floor, there was a patient that we had one time. There was a particular room that kind of gave you the heebie-jeebies when you walked past it. And we had a patient in that room that he was not a nice human. He was somebody that I had actually known like outside of the hospital, so I never took care of him because it was a conflict of interest. But one night he was confused, so he was just saying kind of mean, hateful things. But one of the things that he kept saying is he kept using a racial slur, the N-word, and he kept saying, "Get that little racial slur out of here. He's playing in here. Get him out of here. I don't want that little racial slur in my room." And everybody, this man, I didn't like him outside of the hospital and as a patient, and was confused, and it was not good. But anyway, he ended up leaving that room, got better, left. And then when you're in the hospital, you can get confused, and it's very normal for you to hallucinate. You have medications on board, that's just kind of a normal thing. It just kind of, sometimes your true colors show up whenever you are on medications. I've had women punch me that, their family members say oh, they're so sweet and kind, but then they get on, medications, and then they are, hitting and kicking. And anyway, anesthesia can do that to you, as well as medications, and, even if your sodium gets off, there's all sorts of things that can influence you. So we didn't think much of it. I think it was 2 days later, not just a couple days later, we had the sweetest little old lady in that room, and I did take care of her. She was adorable. I swear she was, I can't remember, she was in her late 80s, but she was so sweet and so cute, poor lady. But she was not confused, and she kept telling me, she was like, "Can you get my purse for me? Give me my purse. I really need my purse. It's over there." And I was like, what do you need your purse for? And a lot of times we don't give patients their belongings, because there might be extra pills in there and we got to know what they're taking. So I said, "Well, let me help you go through your purse, and what is it that you want out of there?" She says, "I have some candy in there. I really want to get some candy for that little boy. He keeps coming in here and playing, and I have some candy that I'd like to give him." And I said, "What, there's no little boy?" And she says, "Yes, there's a little black boy. He keeps playing over there in the drawers, and he's looking for some food, but I have some candy, and I'd like to give it to him." This unit had never been a pediatric unit. There was never children. There wasn't any children on the unit, and nobody was visiting, especially no children. It's pretty creepy.
Well, first off, regardless of whether it's a ghost boy, his imagination, or a real boy, absolutely disgusting things to be saying. He's very lucky that people still took proper care of him after that, because if it were me, who knows, one of those vital machines might have mysteriously gotten unplugged. Hypothetically. At first, initially, without the second experience of the lady also seeing the little boy, I would probably just assume that it's some kind of medication or something like that that is essentially bringing out his inner person. Although it seems like, because she said that he wasn't a great person to begin with and she didn't like him in real life, seems like he's not hiding that part of himself very well. But kind of like how you hear stories about people who are in hospice and have dementia and they start saying really hateful things. Or similar to like how people say that you are the real you when you're drunk or something because you're letting your guard down and letting your true inner thoughts come out. That would be my initial thought here. Without the second experience, it would be so easy to just assume that some kind of medication was just affecting him and really showed his true colors. But it turns out, I guess, that that's not what it is. He is still a horrible person, but it seems like he wasn't hallucinating, given the fact that another woman also saw this little boy. And I do think it is incredibly sweet that she's asking for candy to give to this little boy who she sees just wandering around the hospital playing. If I were her, I'd probably just assume that maybe one of his family members is here and he's kind of wandering around the hospital while he's visiting them. It's so interesting to me that both of them thoroughly believed this was a real person, and we wouldn't have any idea that this little boy actually existed if it weren't for the fact that there were two different people who experienced this. Because again, they assumed that it was just some kind of medicine-induced hallucination type situation with the first guy. But then when she sees it, it's like, oh my god, two people who are completely unrelated, haven't conversed. That's unlikely that they'd be seeing the same thing and it not have any validity. So I'd be astonished if I were her. I would be like, hold on, who did you say you just saw? And when it all clicked, I would be like, oh my god, there is a little ghost boy running around the hospital. It does make me question, though, what he's doing there, because she said that it was never a pediatric floor. So unless he maybe passed on a different floor and is just hanging out in the cardio floor for some reason, maybe he passed and is hanging on the floor where another family member is residing, potentially. It seems like we'll never know, obviously, but crazy story. And it falls into the same thing that I've said multiple times before, that I love stories where two people witness things on separate occasions without having communicated it, and then eventually there's a moment of, oh my god, we've seen the same thing, or oh my god, they both saw the same thing, and you realize in that moment that it was real, that it is something paranormal. Our next TikToks for the user Natasha Solis, who shows us proof of an entity hanging out in her front yard. This is terrifying. I would be so scared if I came across this on my own footage, because I don't know how one would explain this. Bikes obviously cannot do that by themselves, and I don't know how you would fake this. I mean, there's absolutely no way that you could use a string to pull the bike back without it tipping over much sooner than it did. Also, if you use a string to pull it back, that doesn't account for the fact that it then rolls forward on its own before it fell. To me, it seems like there's just a ghost that wanted to go for a little spin on the bike. Maybe didn't know how to ride it without training wheels. Honestly, that may be me next week, though. I had my dad take down my old bike that I haven't rode since, like, middle school, down from the ceiling of the garage, and I'm gonna test it out once this Midwest heat wave goes away. We'll see if I still remember how to ride a bike. Maybe this ghost just hasn't touched one in a few centuries, and that's why it's having a rough time. I have no explanation for this other than something paranormal is going on here. The next two TikToks I'm going to show you are by the user RyeSpams4. Both of these TikToks revolve around paranormal encounters that happened at the house of the kids she nannies. In the first TikTok, she tells us about an event that occurred one night when she was just over there babysitting.
You guys want to hear a scary story? It reminds me a lot of Insidious, but it's real. One time when I was babysitting these two girls, talked about them in a video before this. We were going to call the older one Luna and the younger one Aura. That's what I called them last time. I was babysitting, and the older one had an imaginary friend that she called Pete. I would always sense weird energy in this house. Disturbing, dark, like not good, friendly Casper the Ghost. And then one time, the oldest Luna at the time was, I want to say she was 3 or 4. And the baby, Aura, was like 6 months old. And I had put Aura down for bed. Put her in her little swaddle, got her all set up. She was snug as a bug, cute, perfect sleeping. And me and Luna were out in the living room because I was like, okay, we can play one game together like before you go to sleep, because Aura obviously went to bed a little bit earlier. I think we pulled out like Candyland, some board game, which obviously she doesn't know how to play the ins and outs and the rules because she's 3. But when we were playing, she had another little character and it was Pete's, right? And every time, I swear to God, I would look away, I'd look back and it would move, and she'd be like, oh, Pete moved it. And I'm like, okay, Luna, like, you obviously moved it, you know? Like, she's 3, and I know she's just like, you know, she doesn't know how to play the game. Now I know it was literally this dark spirit that was moving it, but stay with me. I'm like, okay, Luna, sure. And then out of nowhere, we're playing, and the TV was on in the background, excuse me. And Luna goes, I love this song. And I'm like listening. I'm like, what song, baby? Like, I don't hear any music. And she said, oh, the song that Pete is singing to me. She said, it's a song that my daddy plays on his guitar because their dad played guitar, I guess. Like, I'd always see the guitar. Sometimes it'd be in the living room or sometimes it'd be in the parents' room. Like, when I'd go in there to grab stuff for the kids, it was just like always propped against a wall. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, remember what we said about Pete? Because I told her I didn't want her talking to Pete because, again, this felt like a dark energy. And it sucked because every time I was there, I felt like he was sitting in between me and her. Like, he was always, the spirit, Pete, was always hovering. It would never go away. So anyways, I'm like, what song? Blah, blah. And she's like, I'm trying to get her to describe to me again. She's 3. She doesn't really know how to describe it. And she says, no, Pete said he'll play for you. And I said, no, that's okay. Like, want anything to do with it? She said, no, he'll play for you. Just hold on. So I ignore it and we start playing this game again. Just moving little pieces across the board. And all of a sudden I hear the strum of a guitar. Just a solo strum, like an off chord. And I just get chills down my back because at this time the guitar was in the parents' room. I only knew that. I hadn't gone in their room that time, but because I heard it and their door was shut. And Luna jumps up. She's like, oh, I told you, Riley. Like, I told you. Pete said he'd show you the song. It's my favorite song. And I'm terrified. Like, I'm trying so hard to act cool. I don't know how this little girl is not so scared. But I'm just like, oh, okay, hold on. Let me just go look real quick. Because my immediate thought was like, maybe somebody's in the house. Like, a real person. Because that sounded way too real. It literally was just a strum of a guitar. So I go into the parents' room, I turn on all lights, the guitar is just sitting against the wall. Nobody's in the house, I do a sweep, and I'm like really disturbed because every sweep I'm doing, I feel like something is just hovering and following me into every room I'm going into. So I finally sit back down with her, I'm like, okay babe, let's watch like 10 more minutes of the show and then like we're gonna go to bed. When I sat on the couch with her, it was the first time I felt like not super heavy, overpowering energy, and I'm like, whew, okay, like. But anyways, I was like, okay, this feels a little less heavy. Sorry, my dog's drinking water in the background. She's so loud. So I'm like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. And I pick up the baby monitor right next to us. You guys know what's coming. You've seen the scary movies because it literally was just like that. Pick up the baby monitor to check on Aura. And I literally gag when I think about this because it was so terrifying. I see a hand, right next to the baby. She's sleeping, she's swaddling, and it's a creepy hand where the nails are like this long and it's just this black shadowy hand just right next to her. And again, this is the first time I said I felt relieved, like I wasn't being followed. It's because it went in the other room. I freak out. I literally sprinted, ran, busted in Aura's room, woke her up because I came in the door so hot. She was crying and just felt that energy in that room was disgusting. I pick her up, I bring her back out to the living room. I'm like trying to explain to the parents when they come home, like they're gonna think I'm insane of why their kids are still awake. And I'm sitting on the couch with the baby and with Luna, and I forgot to turn off the baby monitor. And I literally hear just disembodied voices coming from the baby monitor. Terrifying, out of nowhere, loud. And I literally just shut the baby monitor off. And the baby ended up falling back asleep in my arms. Luna ended up falling back asleep, and she like fell asleep on me, like her little head was on my shoulder. When the parents came home, I was like, sorry, they're just like so sweet, and they just want to sleep out here with me. Because I tried again to, like I've explained this in the other video, but I tried to kind of bring it up to them before, how like something I thought was going on in their house paranormal. And they looked at me like I was fucking insane. So I knew I wasn't getting anywhere with that. But that was also one of the terrifying times I experienced babysitting for those kids.
I hate that the parents did not take that more seriously. Obviously, people can have wild imaginations, and sure, there's a possibility that maybe she was just freaking herself out and it wasn't true. But I feel like there's no harm in investigating it and keeping an eye out for it for the safety of your children. I feel like also coming to people with that information is kind of risky because, again, they might think that you're crazy or something. So if someone's coming to you with that, it's probably because they've actually genuinely experienced something and they figured that it's worth it to tell you, even with the fear of potentially being considered crazy. I completely agree with her in what she said, that this entity does not seem like a good thing. It seems like it's taking advantage of the children's vulnerability and coming off as a friend when it is the exact opposite. I'm glad that she's encouraging them to not interact with it, but again, they're kids, so how much is that really going to do for you if you don't have the ability to cleanse the house and get it out of your space? In the second TikTok, she tells about a time that this entity actually left with them and came in the car.
You guys want to hear a scary story? It's late, getting ready for bed, why not? So this is a story from the house I used to babysit at, where there was a ton of paranormal activity throughout the home. So like a little two-part thing, kind of, because two things happened in one night. If you need to get caught up with those stories too, they are on a playlist. So I picked the girls up from school and went through the Starbucks drive-thru, and I remember everything was going so great. Like, they got in the car, they were having a great day, and at this point the activity to a sense started to slow down. It would happen less, but it would be more extreme every time it happened, if that makes any sense. So they're getting a little bit older, we have talked about it, things like that, different stories in time, and everything was fine this day. I went through the drive-thru, I gave them their stuff, and Luna, the oldest one, her face just kind of drops and falls when we leave the drive-thru. So this Starbucks is situated in like a plaza, like a shopping center with other shops and parking lots and plenty of open space. So I pulled in this parking spot because I remember it was just odd. Like, she was so excited to get Starbucks and be picked up by me and her sister were laughing, and it was just nothing. And I parked, and so she didn't even realize I parked. I'm looking at her in my rearview mirror, and she was like stopped with the cake pop, like almost out of the little wrapper. She was just looking down at the ground. I was like, huh, like, it was just odd. So I was like, Luna, she didn't say anything. She's still just staring down. It's my cat. So anyways, I said her name again, and then she finally looked up at me. Like, in the rearview mirror, we lost eye contact. And sorry. She was just like, I'm fine. And it was very flat. And another time again, but she had gotten a lot better with kind of letting the activity in the house like get to her and fewer occurrences and stuff like that. So I thought she was maybe having a off day. And so I remember I said, I love you, baby. And she said, I love you too. But it was just so really flat. She was just looking down. So we're driving, right? And we pull into the neighborhood, and we're almost home, or to their house. And I remember Aura, the younger one, was like, ew, that's so gross, wipe that off. And it wasn't me. And I'm like looking kind of in the rearview. I don't see anything when I'm driving. And Aura starts freaking out. She's like, Riley, this is gross, blah, 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 help her. And I'm like, what's gross? Like, they wanted you to throw it, but I didn't somehow actually hear it or smell it. Like, I don't understand what's going on. It's in the cake pop, like, no. So we were like 30 seconds from the house, and I pulled over early. It was just 30-second more driving, but I was not afraid, just like scared, panicked, frustrated. They're talking about, I start freaking out, and I look in the back, and I was like, what's going on right now? Luna like picked her hand up, and she was really grossed out. She was looking at me, and she's like, do you see that? I looked at it really close. It's like a big puddle of drool. I'm not kidding, guys. It was like drool. I have no idea what else it could have been, where it could have come from. And okay, she obviously was to herself, because that was so like saliva. There was no way to come from. It was her or I look back and go that, and it freaks me out. I don't think it was hers or his. I I don't know where. I ended up looking in the trunk of the car. No one was in the car because it was my first thought. When they're like, oh, it's not me. I just thought, God, is someone like hiding in the trunk? Like, force my thing is coming true. Nobody else. Right there, and I'm like, I'm walking into them, and that experience threw me off guard a little bit. So I was kind of to trip out what I was going to walk into. Anyways, for a couple of years, I'm hanging with them, doing some work with them, we're eating snacks. Luna, just looking at the hallway, I described in of this house how trippy that hall was and how it the weirdest places in that place were so manifested. And I know she's looking again, and she was like staring at in the car. I'm like, what? And now there's a court this going on with her. Now, not on her level, but I always did with like, and even with child now, like on my knees and so I can be more understanding. Like I'm yelling at them, from them. And I got to her and I was because I'm worried and zoning out, and she's staring at me for right. And I remember like I'm okay. If maybe you can tell me if something's and she's okay. I'm a little scared today. I was like, well, why? And I replaying my hand. She keeps looking. He's really enjoy. He was like, you see him. No, babe, like that time. And but I do like watch my hair in the back of my neck, getting chill. I'm getting disgusting. That I was pee up, rotting meat. I knew close here, right? And so I away from the like back down to or I it's okay, sorry. That sounds like really you just I won't leave time I'm here. To me it's just, I have to clean it up this time. What? Should I tell him? Looks like he's looking. I think you can understand. In the middle of the hall, she says, just I'm gonna walk in the I feel I have the time. And I look and I fucking not in the same seat in a vibe that fell on her in the car. I was really because I knew it was or when it just happened and dried up and she had been so I was gonna come and check how the fact and since I care of them there was a real person because you can yourself when things it comes it you more than sometimes but probably the most being I couldn't see picture something based on that I'm gonna seriously
I really hate how it seems to have affected her all day long. The fact that she wasn't being herself, she was kind of shut down and quiet because she was so scared. I mean, no child should have to deal with that. Again, it is a shame that the parents don't believe her that there's something in their house, because had they believed her, they could have looked into it, maybe came to the same conclusion, cleansed the house, and gotten rid of it for the sake of their daughters, so they wouldn't be in situations where they felt unsafe like this. The whole, saliva thing is really weird. If there's just saliva falling randomly from the ceiling or out of thin air onto her hand in the car, that's crazy. But then the fact that there's a puddle of it where no one has been, and it couldn't possibly have come from either of the children, How do you explain that? I don't know. When there's like ghostly liquids, that seems like major cause for concern. When it becomes like tangible, that is really scary. So I am not a fan of what's going on here, and I think it really is best to cleanse the house and not interact with this thing anymore, because it doesn't seem to have any good intentions. The next 3 TikToks are by the user Mel Page. I've shared her TikToks in a previous video where she tells us some stories about the haunted house she grew up in, and here I'm going to share with you a few more.
Ask and you shall receive. So growing up in a haunted house is not for the fucking weak, because you will literally, these stories will stick with you for the rest of your life, okay? There are things that I still feel chills about, even like 15 years later, talking about, because it just is not something that ever really goes away, okay? Like, it's just not. Now, things like this do not happen to me anymore because I don't live in that town anymore. I don't live that far away. I still live in Southern California. Anybody that lives in Southern California will tell you that this land is haunted. Like, I promise, any like California native who grew up here, like who believes in that stuff, will tell you, yes, this land is absolutely haunted. And I don't know if haunted is even the right word. There's a lot of energy here, especially in the desert area, which was where I lived at the time. So the ages from like 15 to 17 were like very intense in terms of activity. And this was also a time in my life where I was starting to come to the realization that I had a spiritual gift and that I was psychic and that I was a medium. I always knew when things were going to happen when I was a kid, and I always had a very deep understanding of people passing, right? And so when my grandma passed away, I remember my mom coming home and sitting me down and telling me, you know, that my grandma had passed and that I'm not going to be seeing her again. And I remember like her really going out of her way to explain what that meant. But I already knew what that meant. Like, I knew that it meant her physical body was no more and that I wouldn't be seeing her again. I always predicted when things would happen. I would have like dreams when things were going to happen, especially when people were going to pass. Like, still to this day, I know when someone's going to pass away. Like, I can physically feel it, and I have never once been wrong about that. So anyway, this is what I'm going through as a teen, and I do decide to talk to somebody at my church about it because I'm terrified and I don't know what's going on. Now, even if you are religious, this is the worst fucking thing that you can do, especially to a child. So please don't ever do this, and don't ever say this to a kid. But I decide to bring up what's going on, and my youth leader decides to tell me that I must be doing something right with my relationship with God in order to be being attacked like this. Okay, first of all, I'm not the only one going through this. I have friends who live in this town who are also experiencing paranormal activity because it's the land. It's not us, it's 15-year-olds. What the fuck? So anyway, I'm obviously never bringing anything up to them ever again, and I decided to keep it to myself because that's not helpful. Going back to my best friend Sarah, who used to have sleepovers with me, she was also experiencing some type of activity going on in her home at that time. So I have moved bedrooms, right? Remember, my sister got married. I moved into her room because I was fucking done with that scary ass bedroom. So I move into the bedroom next to my parents' bedroom. Bad idea. Bad idea. Doors are literally right next to each other. We share a wall. My closet wall is like one of their walls, right? So I go to sleep at night. Again, I'm coming to the realization that I'm gifted, or whatever you want to call it. I've accepted that this is a part of my life, and I've made peace with being a psychic medium, and the fears that I had before, I don't have anymore. Like, it's part of what I do for work. I love my job. I love being able to give people peace of mind. I love being able to connect with people who have passed on. Like, it's such a blessing, right? Like, it's such a gift. But obviously at this point, I'm 15, I'm terrified. I'm having people from my church tell me that it's something either I'm doing or I'm not doing for this to happen. So keep in mind that, like, this is what I'm thinking, right? So I'm obviously terrified. I go to sleep and I end up accidentally astral projecting. This has happened to me before when I was a kid, but this is the first time it's happening to me that I'm actually, like, consciously aware of. And I get this really strong urge that I need to go check on my friend. Like, I need to go see if she's okay. So I am, like, flying across town, right? She only lives probably a mile, but you can't just, like, think where you want to go and, like, just show up there, at least not when you're a beginner astral projector. So I have to physically, like, obviously spiritually, but I have to, like, travel to her, right? So it takes a couple minutes. So I get to her house and I see her laying in bed. I can tell you exactly what she was wearing. She was wearing red checkered pajama shorts and a tank top, like a light blue tank top. I still remember to this day. And in the corner of her room is, like, a cloudy spirit, like, in the corner. And it has, like, 15 hands, okay? Like, it's reaching for her. I'm trying to wake her up. She's stirring. I can tell she can't move. You know, like, this is something that she's, like, aware of as she's sleeping, right? I can't help her. And I know that I'm not in my physical body, and, like, my body is at risk. So I need to go back home. I see my body laying in the bed and I try to go back into my body. And that's when I realize that there's, like, 3 different entities circling my body, right? And, like, they're fighting me. Like, they're not letting me go back. I'm terrified, okay? I just want to go back into my fucking body, please. I finally make it back to my body. I sit up out of my bed and I literally am being choked. Like, I'm literally, like, I cannot breathe, okay? Cannot breathe. I look into the mirror, okay? And I see a literal handprint wrapped around my entire neck. And this was not a human-sized handprint. Like, the fingers reached the back of my neck. And there were only 3 of them. There were not 5. There were only 3 fingers, okay? Terrifying. I go in the bathroom. I'm vomiting because I can't breathe. So I'm, like, choking. I wake my mom up. It's like 6 a.m. She's trying to comfort me. I'm terrified. She goes to work. Hello? Literally leaving me right now. Like, why are you going to fucking work? And I just, like, could barely sleep. I was just a mess for freaking days. Okay. I did talk to Sarah about this, and I will make a separate video because that's a whole other story. But I had a mark on my neck. For, like, 5 days. Okay. I didn't even leave the house because I didn't even know how to explain to people what had just happened. And, yeah, that still to this day is the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. So, okay. So this was a question that I got a lot, was either how did your parents not hear anything, or why didn't your parents hear anything? So I'm going to go ahead and explain. So my dad worked out of town for, like, years while this was happening, right? So a lot of the time he would just come home on the weekends. My mom worked full-time for the school district. So she was out of the house from, like, 8 a.m. until probably, like, 3 or 4 p.m. And I was home either with my sisters or I was home alone for those hours. And the activity would happen. It would happen a lot during the day. It wasn't really so much at night unless everybody was asleep and I was, like, the only one awake. So a lot of the activity that would happen would literally, I would be hearing it from my parents' bedroom. So Downstairs we had 2 living rooms and we had a kitchen, right? So the 2 living rooms were like right here, and then you turn the corner and there's the kitchen, and my parents' bedroom was above the kitchen. So you'd hear a door open from my parents' bedroom, footsteps running all the way across the house into my bedroom, and then my bedroom door would slam. Well, these things wouldn't happen when my parents were home because it would start in their bedroom. It'd come a point where I decided to talk to my youth pastor about it because I was a churchgoer when I was younger. The most frustrating thing about this was I was trying to get help, and what they told me was that I must have been doing something spiritually right, otherwise demons would not want to attack me. I'm 15 years old, okay? I'm 15 years old, and that suddenly means that I must be doing something right by God for me to be attacked. So now it's my problem that this is happening. Meanwhile, my other friends who live within a mile radius of me, 2 other friends of mine, were experiencing paranormal activity in their houses as well. So it's like very clearly the land, you know, like it's not me, it's not them, it's something with the land. If you're one of those people, please do not be a part of this series, because I am not somebody that, especially someone who is a psychic medium, shames other people for the experiences that they're having. Okay, when someone books an appointment with me to either talk to a loved one or figure out what's going on in their home, my first thought is not their relationship with God, right? Because what I don't want is people coming into my comment section and trying to make it about something that it's not. So I grew up in a haunted house, and you guys want to know what happened to make it haunted. So first and foremost, TikTok censors everything. So I'm literally going to be putting pictures of the article and you can read it. I'll go over it, but if you like actually want to read the full story, I'm going to make sure to do a part with that. So the haunted house that I grew up in was located in Murrieta, California. Temecula, California is known to be native land, and it's also known to be very haunted. A lot of people who live here don't ever talk about it because this town has a lot of different things, right? So if you're not focused on the history, then you're probably not going to know this. But when this was going on in my home, obviously I did my research, which I then learned about the Temecula massacre. And this was related to the Mexican and Native American War in 1846, where about 100 Native Americans were. So this was related to the Mexican and Indian War in 1846. I read in another article that 20 of them surrendered during the fight and ended up becoming prisoners. And the Mexican colonizers were like, actually, no, we're taking you out too. So even though the house that I grew up in was not on this specific land, it really wasn't that far away, and this did belong to natives. You can find the burial site at the tribal cemetery in Temecula. And if you want all of the history on the paranormal, you can go take a ghost tour in Temecula, California. I haven't done it. I grew up here. I feel like I know the history pretty well, but at this point with all of this talk, I might have to go check it out. So long story short, I find out that this is native land. And at this point in my last video, if you've been following along, you know that I did bring this to my church. I was a churchgoer at the time, and their excuse was I was either doing something wrong or I was either doing something right in order to be spiritually attacked, which is bullshit, as we all know. I decide to take it upon myself to do my research, find this information, and now I'm like, okay, how can I work with these spirits instead of against them so I'm not being tortured? So at this point, I go down to Old Town Temecula and I'm going in to all of the Native American stores, right? Like I'm trying at this point to find peace offerings to bring home so I can make some type of change. This is when I was starting to understand that antagonizing spirits, demanding that they leave, and things like that don't always work. Okay, especially when you're dealing with Native American land, psychic medium, I understand the importance of respecting spirits. Okay, That is why when you watch ghost shows and people are getting attacked and people are getting hurt, is because they're not being respectful. Okay, spirits are not inherently bad. If you are being rude and you're coming into something where energy has existed for hundreds of years and you've just built a little house on their land, okay, they're not going to like that. They're not going to be happy. Okay, and there's ways to work with this instead of against it. So at this point, I'm like buying shit. Like I'm buying feathers, I'm buying dream catchers, I'm bringing spears home, I'm bringing rocks, like I'm bringing sage, I'm bringing things to the house, right? And if you guys are interested, I can make a separate video talking about that entire experience, but that is the history. That is basically where the home was built. This home is from 1846, was one of the original native homes on the land, which was literally 2 miles from my house. You can find this at the Santa Rosa Plateau. It's a very beautiful hiking area, but this place still exists. The Gonzalez adobe, built in 1879, still exists and are apartments now in Temecula.
Saying she must be doing something right to be being attacked by a negative entity is crazy. Normalizing that is crazy. And not taking it seriously and being concerned is also crazy. It also is weird to me if it's a commonly known thing, this area has such a huge amount of history and has a lot of activity, why they would choose to tell her that. I think the way she's continued to go about it is a great way to deal with the situation. If it truly is like native spirits that are just hanging around the land, I don't blame them for being mad and like wreaking havoc in any capacity. I mean, being killed and having your land ripped away from you, so it makes perfect sense. I mean, in the last TikTok, I included her videos and she was talking about how it was a new built house and people didn't believe that a new built house could be haunted, but this right here makes perfect sense. Just because it's a new build doesn't mean that it can't be haunted, because if it's on land that is sacred, has history, was ripped away from people, it doesn't matter if the house is brand new, if the land on it has things attached to it. So I do applaud her for trying to work with them. Obviously it's easier because she is a medium and is more in tune with them. Mystery solved for why the new build is dealing with a haunting. Our next TikTok is by the user The Bonehead. In this video, we see a creature peering at us from the dark.
Pip? Come here, guy. Buddy?
Absolutely not. The way the eyes were still there as the real Pip came into the room, that thing was just standing there like menacingly. It only ran away once it was sure she was able to realize that it was not Pip. After that, I would be very afraid to walk out into that hallway. I probably would not be leaving my bedroom door open at night after that either. I'd make sure my cat's in my room and I'd lock it up. There'd be no going down the hall to the bathroom in the middle of the night for me. I will wait until sunrise because I don't want to find out what that thing is. Our next two TikToks are by the user NurseMegRN. Now these are the other medical paranormal stories that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And in the first TikTok, we hear a story about something hitching a ride on a patient's bed.
Creepiest things that have happened to me as a nurse. Part 1. One time I was working night shift and we were essentially in disaster mode. The entire ER is full, entire upstairs is full. We're trying to turn over people, discharge them, make room. I have one room available. Of course, it's my room. The bed's broken. I gotta go get a bed. So me and a tech, 3 a.m., go to the other building, get a bed in this creepy ass supply room management type place. We bring our sheets with us, we make the bed, then we're coming back over, pushing the bed, the two of us. We have to go through a long hallway that is very dimly lit between the two buildings. As we get to probably a little over halfway, the lights turn off and then they turn on. The tech screams, I scream, and then we look at the bed and there is a huge footprint. I'm getting goosebumps telling this story. Huge footprint in the middle of the bed. I'm gonna show you a picture right here.
If they just made the bed and no one else has touched it, How on earth would it have gotten there if not for something paranormal? I mean, you can even see the big toe in the photo. It's a foot. Like, there was a ghost person standing on the bed, I guess balancing on one foot, potentially. Hitching a ride, I guess. In the next story, she tells us about a time she had a dream that predicted her saving her brother's life.
You guys liked my first video. Let's do another one. This is Creepiest Things That Have Happened to Me as a Nurse, Part 2. This is when I was 13 years old. This is when I knew I had like a connection with like spiritual woo-woo other side stuff. I was 13 years old. I had a horrible nightmare about my youngest brother who had a seizure, and I had to give him CPR personally. I woke up sweating, crying. I went and sat at the kitchen table from like 4 a.m. till when my mom woke up. My mom woke up and she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, no. I was like sobbing. Told her this story. 3 days later, my brother had a seizure. It was the first time he had ever had a seizure. Someone had slipped him in candy PCP. It was in his system. He had a seizure. I was there. I had to give him CPR in the same exact position. He was wearing the same pajamas and everything. Goosebumps. So freaky. And for a long time, I didn't tell anyone. It was just my mom and me who knew. But later in life, as like more creepy, weird stuff, coincidental, unexplained things started to happen, I started to tell the story. Because it's true. Like, and what does that even mean? And was it a warning? Am I psychic? Was it like to just prepare me for that moment so that I didn't freak out, so that I was able to resuscitate him and give him CPR because he was turning blue? What do you guys think? Has that ever happened to you?
I always talk about dreams and how I believe that you can jump timelines, that you can see different things, that you are essentially able to travel while you are in that unconscious state. And I've had plenty of experiences where I have predicted things in my dreams. More specifically, I have had dreams about each one of my grandparents passing away the day before they actually did. I've also had dreams about other family members and or people that I know passing away a day or two before they did. And it has become so foolproof, I guess you could say, that when I do have dreams occasionally of someone passing away, it really freaks me out because the majority of the time it's not wrong. Part of me wonders if the dreams that I do have that don't come true, maybe those people passed away in a different timeline and just not in mine. But I'd say I have about an 85% success rate with those dreams, which isn't really a superpower I like having. But because of that, I can completely vouch for the fact that I think it's 100% possible that she had this dream predicting this thing happening to her brother, and it's almost like a way to prepare yourself in a sense. Not that it actually made me any less sad any of the times I've predicted family members or whoever's deaths, but it's not as shocking in a sense because you've already lived through it once. Even if it wasn't exactly how it happens in real life, you've already experienced that in dream form. And for me, I feel emotions very strongly when I wake up from dreams. Like, I will still feel the lingering effects of whatever I was feeling when I'm in the dream. So it's almost like it makes it easier to grasp and understand when you hear it in real life. And I think maybe that's why it happened for her too. I don't know exactly how it happens. I don't know if it's like ourselves on another timeline trying to prepare us for it in this one, or if we are seeing into the future, or what it is. But I do believe that it is like trying to soften the blow, make it less shocking, prepare you for the news in real life. And it seems like it did the trick for her, where she was able to jump into action and not be as shocked because she witnessed this once before. Our next two TikToks are by the user She Gone Sway. She tells us about an alien encounter she had as a child.
So, when I was younger, I had an alien abduction experience, and it took me 5 years to be able to actually articulate what happened to me to somebody without crying about it. And there are witnesses to this. My brother, my mother, family members, friends. Like, it was really something that broke me down, and it crumbled my whole idea of reality as a child, and it really fucked me up. And I never really came out and told anyone publicly about it. I just kept it as a secret, because I know that I go through a lot of like woo-woo situations in my life, and you know, this is very traumatic for me, and I feel like it's also harder to believe than a lot of the other paranormal experiences that I've had. But it does run in my family to see UFOs or aliens and things of that nature, generation to generation. I've looked into it the past 3 generations of my family. There has been either sightings or close encounters with these type of beings, usually when we are young. And it actually just recently happened to my brother's daughter too, at my grandparents' house, where a lot of us had experiences seeing little green men. My uncle, who went into the Air Force right after high school, he left. He was very antisocial, and he used to see little green men coming to his room. But besides that point, this is the story. What year was it? I was in 6th grade, and I had my own room, and I had a bunk bed in my room, and it was just me and my brother in the house. So I went to sleep at night. He was still up. He was playing the game in my mom's room. And it wasn't any situation like I saw a bright light come through my window, or, you know, I didn't levitate out of my bed or anything. And one thing about me is that I've always been a light sleeper. Anything happens, I'm going to wake up, okay? And majority of the time, I stay up all night. Like, I have crazy insomnia. I cannot go to sleep while the sun's down. So I know for a fact, I can tell, and I've been such an avid dreamer my whole life, I can tell when there's a lucid dream happening and when there's a physical situation happening. I went to sleep on my bed, and I woke up in a different room. And when I woke up in this different room, it was a circular room, and it had smooth, rounded walls on it. I saw one small porthole window, and it reminded me at the time of like the windows from like SpongeBob on the show, like the little portholes. And it was a metal porthole window and a small, you know, glass. And when I looked out that window, it was just black. And I had this feeling, like my heart dropped to my stomach, and I had this feeling like I want my mommy to come get me, but I'm too far. She'll never find me here. And I was really scared. And at that point, I realized that I couldn't move from where I was, because I was just like looking around the room. And I couldn't actually physically move my body. And it didn't even feel like sleep paralysis. It felt like I didn't have a body. Like, I couldn't feel anything at all. I could just move my eyes. It was like I couldn't even feel pressure on me, like sleep paralysis or anything, to like try to move. Like, it felt completely numb. Like, I didn't have a body at all. And I didn't have any control over it. I couldn't move anything. And I was looking around the room with my eyes like this. And I remember seeing around the bottom floor of the room, there were these tube-like things, which at the time I associated with the idea of like Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, where the rose with the roses in, it were those type of little pod glass things that were in the floor around the room, and they were around the whole entirety of the room, and they had green fluid in it, and there were babies at different periods of growth. Like, there were embryos, there were tiny little babies, they were the whole full-term babies. It was babies in these tubes, and it freaked me the fuck out. And when I kind of brought my attention back center, there was a alien there. I would say it was a gray alien, but it was like a greenish, palish, minty green looking color. It was this close to my face. He leaned in, and it was this close to my face. And the eyes were so big I couldn't even like see. Like, His eyes wrapped around the sides of his head. They were big and they were black. He had tiny little mouth that was just slit in 2 little holes as a nose. And he had like wrinkles on his forehead. Like you could tell his expressions, but it wasn't saying anything. And he smelled like cinnamon and throw up. I've never forgotten about that. I've never forgotten about that. I'm 25 years old. I was in 6th grade, early 6th grade. I don't even know how old I was, but it smelled like cinnamon and throw up. Warm, sweet, spicy, putrid. It was weird. It made me nauseous. And while he was looking at me, when I looked into his eyes, it was like static. Like I started seeing like TV static. And it actually, what it seemed like was it was trying to imprint a certain type of cover situation or dream on my memory so that I would not recall the situation, because it was looking at me deeply in my eyes, and then there was static, and then there was this dream-like state coming over me, which I was aware of because I've been such an avid lucid dreamer my entire life, and I remember every single one of my dreams. So once this started to come over, it was like static, and then it was like a clown. It was like a creepy clown, but it was like very cartoonish, and I dream in like reality. I don't dream in cartoons. I don't dream in crazy colors. I don't dream in random fairy tale mystical things. And there was these cartoon crazy clowns, like scary clowns, like coming towards me like this with the big creepy faces, and it was all dark in the background, but I'd never been scared of clowns, so it didn't resonate with me. And once I was looking at it, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense, the whole thing kind of like staticked away, like the whole image of the clowns and everything staticked away, and I was back in the same room that I originally was in, and there were more beings. Now there were about 5 little green gray alien things around my table that I was laying on, and I was laying on a metal slab table, and it went down in a tilt like this, and it reminded me of like a mortuary bed or something like that, but it had a tilt to it, and I was butt naked, and I was on this table, and I was a child, okay? I know I was naked because I know I was naked. And then there were all these little aliens. They came up around me, and they put their fingers on top of me, and they started just like touching me. But the thing was their fingers were like twice as long, and they had bulbs at every knuckle. It was like bulbous, like bubbles. And I thought that was really weird. And they were just like touching me, like laying their hands on different parts of me and everything. And this was before we actually started the following procedures. But before I get into that part, there was screaming around this point. And there was a lady screaming, and she was screaming, "Give me my baby, that's my baby, give me my baby." And I couldn't see her, I couldn't turn to look at her, I didn't know where she was in the room, but she sounded like she was really close. And it sounded like she was screaming from right behind my head, like she was right behind me. Like her bed was laying against my bed, like that's what it sounded like. It sounded like she was screaming right behind me. And then this alien comes around me, and it's holding this baby, this newborn baby. The baby's not crying or anything. And then the craziest fucking thing happens. The wall just opens up. It like morphed and merged like a liquid. It just opened up. There was no door or like structure to like open or close. The metal just like melted and morphed away, and it opened up, and this thing I did not expect came into the room. Part 2 to my alien abduction story. Let's get right into it. I'm gonna try to say this part without sounding too crazy, so forgive me if I need to try to find the words, because it does sound kind of outlandish. So, picking up where we left off, the wall opened up, and the gray alien walked over to the opening in the wall with the baby in its hands, and another being walked into the room. another being walked into the room, and it was a fucking praying mantis. And it was like 8 feet tall, and it was like human size, like everything was big and proportional, and it had the arms with the claws and the shit. It was a whole ass bug, y'all. It was a whole ass bug the size of a linebacker. I'm not even lying. I'm not even kidding. And as a kid, like, I never even had any reference to create that type of shit in my mind. I didn't. There was a praying mantis that walked in, and it didn't say anything. It walked in, and it had a cloak on. It was a cloak. It was a long cloak that went down to the floor, but the cloak was like this velvety looking texture, and it had all these different like colors and stuff. It looked like the cosmos. It looked like all these different colors and swirls and galaxies and stuff like that, but it was just like on the fabric, but it was like holographic, you know. It was weird. And the alien went and handed the baby to this being, this praying mantis. And I watched it grab the baby and hold it and look down at it and look up, and it turned around and walked back out the room. I was freaked out, to say the least. Because it was the whole praying mantis. It wasn't like, oh, it was a human that looked like a bug. No. Okay. And sorry. And this is when the experiments started happening on me. And there was a taller gray alien, gray-green alien, whatever. And there were shorter ones around the bed that was working with it. It seemed like the taller one was in charge. None of them were saying anything. It was very surgical, the way that they were moving about things. Like, they had a job, they had a purpose on what they were doing, and they were making sure they got their job done. And the first thing was the needle in my belly button. Long needle. They stuck it in my belly button. And I felt that. It hurt. But I couldn't move, and I couldn't cry or anything. And it was like that for probably about 2 minutes. And then they pulled it out. And then it was my eye. It was this eye. And they pulled this machine over top of me. It was a big square machine. And it kept like, doosh, doosh, doosh. Like it would drop down into little squares. It was like these squares would drop down out of it. And once it got to the smallest square, it was like right above my eye. And then there was this long needle that came out. Okay. So while they put this machine over top of me and the thing was coming down, they grabbed, I saw a table. I remember I drew it out and everything. I drew out all the little tools that I saw. I drew out what the room looked like. I drew out what they looked like. I drew out everything before. And there was a little a thing, like a table, a rolling table or something beside the bed I was on, and it had this tray of like different tools and stuff. And they grabbed this one that looked like, sorry, this shit is making me nauseous. They grabbed this tool that looked like an eyelash curler, and they put it in my eye, and I held my eye open. It went in and like held it open. And then they grabbed this green goopy stuff that looked like slime now, like how people like play with slime and stuff, but you know, we didn't really play with slime back in the day like that. It was like this slime, and it was this green color, and they grabbed it in this little scooper, and they splattered it on my eye, and my eye went numb. And by the time my eye was numb, the machine was right over my eye at this point, and then all I felt was a puff of air on the rest of my face, but it was the needle shooting out of the square. It was like, it shot out of the square, and it went straight into my eye. And it went in so quick, I couldn't even, like, see it. I just felt it, and I felt it here. I felt it. I didn't feel it go into my eye, but I felt it going through my brain. It's like the initial impact, they didn't just like stab it in my eye. It was like the initial impact was like a tsh, and then they just slowly pushed it, and it went all the way to the back of my head, and I felt it. Oh my God. I felt it in my brain. It hurt so bad, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't cry, and I couldn't do anything. And I felt it in my brain. I felt it pushing through parts of my brain and cutting things. And I heard it on the inside of my head. I heard it tap the back of my skull. Like once it got to the back of my skull, I heard it hit the bone. And I was freaking out because I'm like, okay, I can't move my eyes. Like, don't move your eyes. Like, this shit is, like, inside of your fucking head. Like, what is going on right now? And me as a child, I don't know nothing about, like, a fucking lobotomy or whatever this could have been. I don't know. And once that was over, the machine got pulled back out. And then they went on to, they were touching on my skin again. Just like touching on my arms and my legs and stuff. And I don't know exactly what they were doing when they were doing that. And then it was this next part that like I just don't. I've never heard anything like this in anybody's experiences before, but they laid me on my stomach and there was a screen that I could see. And on that screen was my back that they were looking at. And they put all this green gooey stuff on my back, and then I watched them cut it open with a laser like a book. Like, this is my back, and they cut it like this. And then they fucking peeled it back. They peeled it back. And it was just, I could see my spine and my ribs and my organs. And then I kind of fainted after that because I was in disbelief and I don't know what they did. I don't know what they did on that part. But I just remember seeing it and I was so freaked out. Because I didn't know what they were doing to me. And after that, I woke up. And I woke up in my bedroom. And I got up out of my room as fast as I could. And I ran to my brother. And I started hyperventilating. And I fainted. And I told him what happened. And he told me he believed me. And he told me not to tell my mom because she wouldn't believe me. And she didn't for a long time. Up until these recent years where my nieces started saying they were seeing green men, and she heard the story of my uncle and my grandparents and everything, and her UFO encounters, and she was like, it kind of makes sense. What do you think? Was it a dream?
Stories like this, for me, are more frightening than paranormal experiences. For as much as I'm into scary, spooky things, as much as I will listen to true crime as I'm falling asleep, as much as things don't typically get to me, for some reason, stories of alien abductions and testing really just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And again, that's saying a lot because there are very few things that actually make me feel physically ill. Personally, for me, the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix show, really interesting. I had to force myself to finish watching that. Another example is the case of Junko Furuta. There are some true crime cases that I will watch from different creators, even though I already know the story, just because sometimes there's new information, new commentary, but I will never again watch a video about her case because it makes me feel so violently ill. So there are a few things like that that really get to me, but it doesn't happen often. However, alien abductions / testing are one of those things that really makes me feel unwell thinking about it. And I personally, I'm interested in aliens. I believe in aliens. But when it comes to the whole abduction stories and stories like this about testing, I usually avoid them because, like, the way I feel while listening to it is not a feeling I enjoy. But I think the story is so important because of the way she tells the story. You can see the emotion behind her words. You can see when she gets choked up because she's reliving a part that is extremely hard for her. You can tell how deeply this affected her and that she is 100% telling the truth. It really is the emotion behind this that makes me want to share it so much, even though as I was listening to this, I really did not feel well. Stories like this also make me wonder about the lasting effects. Obviously, there's like the trauma of it, but physically, if there are any changes or effects from tests and stuff that were run on them, from like physical issues that they have had since their experience. It amazes me how after going through something like that, you can kind of just continue on with life and be normal. Like, I don't know, when people do experiments on people, obviously that doesn't happen as often these days because it should not be happening. But you hear of like disfigurement and clear mental disabilities after the fact, loss of limbs, this and that and the other thing. You hear about all these things that have come out from experiments on other people. And it makes me wonder how that doesn't happen when there's an alien abduction, or at least it doesn't seem like there are severe effects like that, like the way it would if it was a human. I don't know why, but I feel kind of crazy saying that. And then my follow-up statement is that they must just have some kind of really advanced technology that allows them to drop the people off with little to no effects afterwards, which I, again, feel crazy saying that too. But I don't know. I do have a hard time listening to stories like this because it somehow, to me, it is scarier than any kind of ghost experience. Our next TikTok is with user AJ Magnifica 18. She tells us about a school she used to work at that was very old and very haunted, and one experience she had that nobody can deny was paranormal.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I used to work in a classroom that was completely haunted. It's a building that was built in like the 1930s, so it was super old, and my classroom was in the old part of the building, and there was a closet directly behind the door of the classroom. So you'd open the door and it would almost hit the closet. And in this closet was an old wooden closet. It had an old skeleton type key that had been lost to the ages probably decades and decades ago. But in this closet is where I used to keep my coat, my purse, everything that I would bring to school. I'd just like toss in that closet when I got in my classroom, close it up. And like I said, it didn't lock, no big deal. So I took my stuff out one night. The next morning, I came back to school, went to open the closet, and it was so locked. It was like the doorknob was seized. It was not able to even be jiggled. It was just so locked, like the door wouldn't even move, which was strange because it was kind of an old wooden closet type situation. So I called maintenance and they were like, we don't have a key to this. Like, there's never been a key to this. Maybe there was in like 1945, but there's just no key to this. So I was like, well, that's very strange. Why is this closet totally seized up? Couldn't put my stuff in there for, it was at least 2 to 3 weeks. I thought that one particular student who was notorious for doing things like hiding tiny little plastic babies around the building, I thought that somehow he was playing a joke on me because it was just on brand for him, and he was just denying it vehemently. Like, was not happening. It was not him. So fast forward a couple of weeks, and I was teaching a group of freshmen, and I'm just talking, and everybody knew that this closet was locked because I was like, guys, figure this out for me. Like, there was even still to this day, there was like crowbar marks where people tried to like pry it open, but there was no getting this closet open. So I'm teaching, and in the middle of class one day, I'm standing about 4 feet away from the closet, and it was quiet in the classroom. And all of a sudden, we all heard a click, and then a and that door had clicked open on the closet and slowly creaked open. All of us kind of sat there and looked at it, and we were like, what's going on? As if that wasn't enough, I had these little beach ball emoji balls because I'm a Spanish teacher and we were teaching emotions, and I teach emotions with these little beach balls. I toss them to the kids. They tell me what emotion they're seeing. These little beach balls were stored at the bottom of this closet. One by one, these beach balls started rolling out of the closet onto the floor. The closet has never been locked again. I don't know. I don't work in that classroom anymore. But that closet was miraculously unlocked that day after being seized up to the point where you couldn't even jiggle it for weeks. I still have no explanation for why that happened or how that happened or what was going on there. Fun fact, a group of students also took like a major interest in this, and they stayed after one day and downloaded like ridiculous little ghost apps on the phone, like with the ghost radar, and they would put it in the classroom, and there was always like a maniacal red blob right over where that classroom was on the ghost radar, and they would talk to it and be like, please tell us your name, and the name Bronwyn kept coming up. So I'm convinced that the closet in my old classroom was haunted by a little girl ghost named Bronwyn.
What was the reason? I mean, honestly, I always say that, but also it would be kind of funny. Like, if I'm a ghost, I think I would have so much fun messing with people and freaking them out. So I get it. But I always wonder what's the reason, but then when I think about it, I'm like, okay, no, yeah, like if I'm a ghost, I'm for sure freaking people out. Like, that would be so fun. However, it is though, just like, what is the reason that the closet was locked for so long? Like, that's just such a funny random thing to do. Like, let me lock this closet for like 3 weeks, and then everyone's gonna be confused and spiral about it, and then randomly I'm just gonna unlock it for everyone to see. Like, I don't know. It's hilarious, but also it's like, I guess they do have too much time on their hands, because what are you supposed to do when you're a ghost? But it's just such a funny situation. And also just like, I would be truly mind boggled, and using all those students to vouch for me that I wasn't crazy and that it was a paranormal event. That plus then the emoji balls rolling out of the closet, there is no doubt. I mean, a closet locking itself and then unlocking itself doesn't happen. So clearly paranormal, but I think the balls were just a little added effect, almost like the cherry on top, the confetti at the concert, if you will. Our next 2 TikToks are with user Jocelyn Lichten Walter. In these 2 videos, we see her investigating a Jack-in-the-Box and a haunted doll.
So this is Elmer. Hey. Can you light up that device into the yellow to let me know that you're in here with me? Thank you. Elmer, do you like to watch people sleep at night? You do? Do you feel trapped in that box? If you want out of the box, can you light that up to the green? Thank you. So let's just confirm some stuff. So can you light that into the yellow if your name is Elmer? Light it to the green if you're 14 again. Thank you. Do you want me to get your box fixed? Did you accidentally kill yourself? You did. Did you accidentally shoot yourself? Cindy, can you light up the EMF? Just light this up for us. Turn it into the green. Can you turn it into the green? Okay, thank you. Thank you for turning on your light, too. Can you turn it into the green again? Cindy, if you tried to light up the candle, can you turn that REMF into the green? No? Can you tell me how old you are? Can you light up the candle if you want me to take you back to Hill House? Do you miss Toby? They said you like to throw food. Do you like to throw food? If you like to throw food, can you light up that candle? I guess that works too. Do you want me to give you food? Can you light something up besides your necklace if you want me to give you food? Can you light the candle up if you want me to put you back on the shelf?
The lights really add to the vibe of this. It creates almost an unsettling atmosphere about the whole thing. But honestly, I like the guy at the beginning, Elmer. I think that is an adorable name. He seems really sweet, but also I feel like it's hard to tell because you never know if someone's being sweet just to make you let your guard down. It's like, it's so hard knowing spirit's intentions. To me, he sounds like a sweetie pie though. I kind of have a soft spot for clowns. Like, I really, really love clowns. I don't know if you can see this little guy that I have right back here. My grandma gave that to me, and it is a wonderful memory of her. So I really do love clowns. I love turning myself into a clown. I think that they are adorable in a spooky way. I think they're mainly misunderstood, except for those killer clowns that were running around the country for a while. What a time to be alive. I feel like I bring that up like once every 6 months, but that was a pivotal moment in my childhood, or teenage years, I guess. The doll, however, I would assume this creator probably doesn't intentionally bring negative entities into our house, but I do have a little bit of a bias that dolls kind of freak me out a little bit. I think it's partially because of like Annabelle, and also just, I don't know, something about the way they stare into your soul kind of freaks me out. I know a lot of you have commented about this thing back here. That's Gregory. I got him on Etsy years ago. I personally think he's adorable and I love him. My family hates him and thinks he's creepy. I love him. Gregory is my pal. But notice how he has no eyes to stare into your soul. He's just smiling, like he's just happy all the time. I feel like dolls are just like staring at you, and I am afraid of seeing one blink. So I don't know, I immediately get scary vibes from dolls, but she could be chill. But I personally would never intentionally bring something haunted into my home. Again, this guy's from Etsy. He's not a haunted doll. He's just an intentionally creepily made doll. Our next TikTok is with the user Olivia Conkle. She tells us she just experienced something terrifying.
Wait. There's legit no one in here, dude. No one is in here.
Okay, at first I was thinking, hey, with the way the lamp fell and the way the door slammed, easy to fake that. However, Her reaction seemed very real to me, and the fact that there's a mattress and a fully made bed in the living room and there's no bed in that obviously bedroom tells me that maybe this has been going on for a bit and they've decided to get out of there and stay in a different area of the apartment. If this is fake, I will say it's very good acting. I truly believe that she is scared and is just documenting a frightening experience. And the way he stands over there examining the lamp at the end really seems like he is just as baffled and frightened. So if this isn't real, they did a really good job at making this one. But honestly, I do believe that this is something that is happening to them. And I believe it because of the fear in her voice. The next two TikToks are by the user Spooky New England, who shows us some paranormal events that have happened at the real Conjuring House.
How are you not afraid to work at the Conjuring House? There's evil spirits there. The evil spirits in question.
I'm coming down.
Oh. Yes, I can. Oops. Wow.
So on the big... Oh. Hi. That just happened.
Just trying to mop.
Come into the basement, little girl.
Morning room. Okay, I knocked on the door. Hello. Oh.
Girl, bye.
Okay, fair enough.
We saw you open the door using your mouse. Be for real.
Now, if you know me, you know I loved The Conjuring. The original movie is my favorite scary movie, other than this one back here. Although they definitely fall into different categories of spooky, but other than the Scream franchise, The Conjuring original movie is my favorite horror movie of all time. It, for lack of better words, is my comfort paranormal movie. I've seen it so many times, it doesn't scare me anymore. Or at least it doesn't scare me while I'm watching it. There's still some after effects, but I think that's kind of unavoidable. I personally would have loved to go to the Conjuring House back when it was owned by the previous people. I don't know much about the new people, but I know there was a little drama and questionable stuff going on. But the family who previously lived there, I think, seemed super cool, and I would have loved to visit while they owned the place. But the Conjuring House just fascinates me so much. I mean, the history, the fact that such crazy, real paranormal events happened there. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. All of the entities that are in that house, and I personally am fond of the one that they call Abigail, given the fact that that is my name. I am completely fascinated by this house, the history behind it, and all of the events that have taken place there since. It is crazy. The next TikTok is by the user FartButt888. It's a good one. And in this one, it shows us a ghostly encounter at the Witch History Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. I want to go to Salem real bad. It's for sure on my bucket list. This, however, is really scary. You can clearly see that her mouth closes. Her mouth closes. That is a doll. That is a statue. She should not be moving. Not only does her mouth close, it kind of looks like her face, like her eyes, everything like looks just a little bit different for that split second. And I really tried looking at it and being like, well, it's just because it's a blur that it makes it look different. But I genuinely don't think that's the case with the mouth. Like, the teeth are not there. The lips look the same, just closed. I personally get really scared when I am at museums where they have like mannequins, especially mannequins that are like people with real heads and stuff. Not real heads, but I just find it really unsettling, and I'm constantly convinced that they're gonna start moving on me. So this does not shock me at all. If anything, it further confirms my fears of these mannequins in history museums. This non-real woman shuts her mouth, and it's caught on camera. Clearly, there are some spirits running around that place. We have visual proof of it. Our next two TikToks are by the user Texas Ghost Hunters. They've reposted a video that says, Axis2527 of YouTube caught this poltergeist activity in his home one night while alone. And I'm gonna show you exactly what he caught.
This is Julian documenting something that's happened today. I've just came downstairs from studying and drawing all day. No one else has been home, and I just decided to go down and play Zelda in my basement because that's where my Wii is. And when I opened the door, the lights were on and no one else has been home. So I'm gonna record this if anything happens. I'm gonna change it so you can see what I see right now. So this is going downstairs. We're gonna see if we can see anything. Oh my god. Light just turned off. Let's see if any. You know what? That was probably just some electrical thing. I gotta go to the light switch. There's only one light switch. It's right here. The bottom of the basement. So I don't see anything over here. Oh my god. That chair just moved. I'm documenting this. I don't know how that could have happened. I'm a skeptic on this whole subject, so I have no reason. I don't know how to explain that. But I just know I'm going upstairs. If there's anything here, I command you to shut the door. Oh my god. Oh my god. Let me out. This is Julie making another paranormal video down here in my basement. I haven't been down here since last time. What was that? I've heard a lot more noises now, but I tried to ignore them. I just want to get this on again to see if anything will happen. Like last time. It's the only that went down. What we believe the spirit is an infant, because it often hangs around my baby brother and he says he sees it, and also it touches his toys very often. I hear them going on and off all the time. There's no strings on it.
That is for sure poltergeist activity to me. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of on the edge of my seat this whole video. And at one point he turned the camera around to face himself and I got a little jump scare because I thought it was like a creature. Not that he looks like a creature, but it caught me off guard because I was looking at the room and then all of a sudden I was looking at a face. That did make me jump, and I felt a little bit embarrassed that I was so on edge that I jumped at that. But this whole video just has such creepy vibes about it. And he seems genuinely confused slash concerned slash scared. Maybe I'm just gullible. But I feel like if this is one of the first things he's posted on his YouTube, it's not like a person who's trying to do this for views. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't believe him. I mean, he showed that there was no strings and stuff on the things that moved, which I will say is mighty brave for him to approach those things after that happened. But I really don't think this is an issue of him making up a ghost experience for views. This genuinely seems like a freaked out kid. And again, it for sure seems like poltergeist activity. I can't tell if it actually wants to harm him or not. It's for sure scary, and I don't understand the point of all of that scary activity if it's not eventually trying to harm him, but we can't say that for sure. It also seems like it's a fairly old video based on the quality, so I'm sure we're well past the situation by now, but these two videos definitely had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Our next two TikToks are by the user George Ashley. She retells us a story she found on the internet that I thought was absolutely fascinating and had me wishing there was an entire movie based on this. This story is from a girl who says that she is a sugar baby, but not necessarily how you might think.
I've got the creepiest story to tell you. I've just read it and I need to tell you before I forget it. It's honestly disgusting. It's about a woman that has a sugar daddy and he asks her to do really weird, peculiar favours for him. This girl's a student and she wants to earn some extra cash, but she doesn't want to get a job and actually work. I mean, don't we all? So she decides to look on a sugar daddy website. So she's browsing through and she's like, these are all creeps. I don't actually want a relationship or do anything intimate. I just want somebody to give me money. I mean, dream life, right? She sees an ad that says, sugar baby wanted, no relationship. Other words used. So she's like, I'm going to shoot my shot, you know? Just messages him, hi. Instantly gets a reply, hey, sweetheart. And she's like, oh, don't call me sweetheart, but whatever. I'm going to entertain the conversation. They're chatting, getting to know each other. She finds out his name's Jack, doesn't want no relationship of sorts. And he says, can you give me your number, or I prefer to use Kik. I think Kik was like a private messaging site. I don't actually know. I'm a bit too young for that. Anyway, she's like, it's not 2011. I don't know what Kik is. I don't have that app, but here's my number. Let's just talk on there. So he's like, yeah, sound. Also give me a Venmo and I'll send you some cash if you do me a favour. So she's just like, okay, what's this favour? Like, what do you want from me? And he says, I just want you to do a few little favours for me here and there. And I'll send you some cash. Like, tonight, can you pick up a parcel for me? She's like, picking up a parcel sounds easy enough to me. Yes, I'll do it. So he instantly Venmos her £700. And she's like, that's really easy money. And he says, okay, when you get there, don't look in the parcel. But also when you deliver it to my house, I'm not there. You're going to have to let yourself in the house. But make sure you lock the door twice. This is the first of the odd requests. Easy way to make 700 quid though. And she's like, okay, I'm going to pick up this parcel for him. Gets the address. On her way there, she's thinking, am I going to get kidnapped? Are they going to abduct me? Like, general thoughts that women have. She gets to the house and a guy opens the door. It looks a bit rough. And he's like, are you here for jack shit? And she's like, I guess so. And he hands her a shoebox. But this shoebox is like kind of cardboardy and very, very damp. And also is like oozing some sort of liquid from the corners. This guy says, open the car and I'll put it in the boot for you. And he just looks at her and just says, just make sure you watch out. Watch out for what, sir, is what I'd be asking him. Arrives at this house and it's massive. It's like a mansion. And then she notices that her phone is buzzing and she's got a text from Jack and it says, make sure you don't answer the phone unless it's from Marvin. And she just kind of ignores it and she's like, I hope he hasn't given my number out to other people. She finds where the spare key is. She makes sure she opens and locks the door twice and she puts the parcel where he's asked her to on a very specific table. It's like, these are easy rules. She then hears the phone ring. She's thinking, do I answer it? And she looks around the house. This house is immaculate, perfect, pristine, like a show home. And she finds a mobile phone on a bed. And she picks up the phone and it says that Jack's calling. And she's like, I don't want no one to test me here. I'm just going to ignore it, going to leave. Follows the rules to lock the door twice when she leaves as well. Everything goes fine. And she ends up doing a few more favours for Jack in the future. Earns a good bit of cash. Some of these favours are a bit weird though. Some of these jobs are a bit weird. I wouldn't say it's more of a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship. More like an employee doing some runarounds. One of these jobs is driving a BMW to a random park in a random city and driving a different BMW back. Dropping off various briefcases and oozy wet shoeboxes. Taking employees out to dinner. Also every now and then she's got to babysit like this grown man called Julio. And she gets quite friendly with him and he's now a mate. But she's like, I'm getting paid to do all this, so I'm not complaining. Buys herself some nice furniture, buys herself some nice clothes. She's fine. Nothing that weird's happening. He's just got some odd requests every now and then. One day she gets a buzz on her phone saying, I'm out of town for a little while. I need you to stay at my house. I'll pay you £1,000 a night. He said he'll check in with her in the morning to see if he needs her to stay another night, but there'll be a list of rules on a piece of paper on the dining room table. So she knows the gig. She knows what to do when she gets to the house, unlocks the door twice, blah, 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 goes there. Now, on the dining room, she does find a list of rules. These rules would make me leave. Like, I ain't messing about with these rules. The first two are ones that she already knows. You only answer the phone to Marvin, who, by the way, she's never spoke to, and you have to lock the doors twice. Bear in mind, this girl knows this guy's house quite well, and she knows the standard rules, but she's never actually met Jack in person. They've had one phone call with each other, but he's just a stranger. Now, this next rule is a bit weird. You can't use the water between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. And maybe you're just being tight, you know. Maybe there's a water surcharge during that time. And then they just get creepy. And this rule would get me out of that house. This rule is, if the cupboard door at the end of the corridor is open, you must sleep in the library and lock yourself in. But if it's closed, you can sleep in any bedrooms. I'm sorry, what? If that library door is open, I'd be running out of that. I'd be packing my bags. Grand ain't enough, mate. Ain't enough. The rules also say if anybody knocks on the door after 10 p.m, it doesn't matter who they say they are, you do not open that door, no matter how tempted you are. We have a gardener coming at midnight. If he knocks on the window, you need to hide. And also, make sure you turn the TV on static and you need to play it on all night. Do not forget to do this, all in block capitals. Because all the weird shit starts happening around 9 p.m. She's like, 8:50, before I can't use the water, I'm going to go brush my teeth, get in bed. Guess what? That door is open. That cupboard door is open. And she's like, oh, gotta lock myself in the library tonight. Bitch, what? No, you don't. What's open that cupboard door? Somehow she was fine with it. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to lock myself in here and go to bed. Falls asleep quite quickly, apparently, because about 10:15, she's woken up by the doorbell ringing. And she looks at her phone. It's 10:15. I can't answer that door. And then she can hear who's at the door. And they're saying, it's the police, let me in. It's the police, it's the police, you must open up. It's the police, it's the police. And she's like, it was that important. The police are going to break down the door. Like, I'm not answering that door. I'm not failing at this task. Then changes, and then it's Jack at the door, knocking on the door, saying, let me in. I forgot my key. Let me in. She's like, I ain't pissing about. I ain't doing it. You ain't beating me. And she falls back asleep. I don't know how she does it, but she does it. In the morning, she gets up and she's like, bit weird last night, but I'm going to get paid £1,000. And then she can hear noises downstairs, like a bit fumbling, like someone's downstairs. And she's like, oh, maybe Jack's come home or he's got a cleaner or something. I'm not expecting this. He usually texts me. She goes downstairs and there's a man in the kitchen and she's just kind of standing at the doorway. And he goes, oh, how are you? Did you have a good sleep? And she recognises his voice through a phone conversation that it's Jack. And she's like, oh, hey, I didn't expect you to be here. He's like, yeah, well, I decided to come home early. I'm just making breakfast. Can I make you something? And he makes her some eggs and coffee and the conversation's really awkward. He breaks the silence by saying like, so how was it? And she's like, nothing too weird happened. And he's like, cool. Conversation's that awkward, and she lies that she's got to go to school, and she's like, I've got to go to class. I'll speak to you later. And he's like, no worries, I'll speak to you when I speak to you. On the way back, she's like, that was a really awkward conversation. Like, was he there to catch me out? And then she remembers she didn't turn the TV static on all night. And then she just remembers, like, oh my God, he told me to do that. Like, that was the one thing I couldn't forget to do. She's paranoid that she's not going to get paid, or she's never going to, like, work with him again. And she's just getting really anxious and paranoid that something bad's going to happen. Her phone buzzes and she gets £1,000 through Venmo. And she's like, oh, thank God for that. Like, I've been paid, all good. She then gets a text from Jack. The text says, I'm still out of town. Do you think you can do the same tonight? She rereads it. I'm still out of town. Do you think you could do the same tonight? Who was in the house in the morning? Because it weren't Jack. She doesn't reply to Jack, and she's like, I don't know what I've got myself into. I'm too scared. I don't want to go back to that house. What's going on? And then she gets another text from an unknown number, this time just saying, watch out. What is going on? Who are these people? What has she got involved with? There is a part 2. I haven't read it yet, but I am on my own tonight, and oh God, I need to stop reading scary stories before bed. This is part 2 of one of the weirdest, bizarre stories of a sugar daddy that has really bizarre requests for his sugar baby. You need to watch part 1 to understand, because these requests are peculiar, to say the least. So after receiving a text saying, watch out, because she forgot one of these rules, she refuses to leave her house for well over a week. The only reason why she leaves is because she has a really important test that she has to attend at college. On the way there, she's adamant that a black car is following her. She is on edge and paranoid, thinking that she's got herself involved with a group of weirdos, killers, people that are just out to get her because she forgot to turn a TV on to play static music. Like, make that make sense. She completes the test that she's pretty certain that she failed at because of how anxious she is. And on the way back home, she sees the same black car following her. When she pulls up on the driveway, she sees someone standing in her doorway. And it's Julio, the guy that she babysits. The grown man that she babysits. She is too shit scared to get out of the car. And he notices her. And he's like, put your window down, I need to speak to you. He puts the window down and he's like, it's not me that you need to be afraid of. I can tell you things about Jack. And she's like, okay, I know this guy. He's going to tell me some information. Like, it's Julio Iglesias. Like, I'll chat with him. So inside the house, Julio says, I know that you forgot a rule. They always forget a rule. And Jack won't be happy, as he's got rid of girls for doing pettier shit. And she's like, they? What do you mean got rid of? Like, how many times has he done this? And then she says, how do you know I broke a rule? Like, did Jack say something? And he says, no, I went to the house and it was unlocked. You always need to lock the door. And she says, I did lock the door, but Jack was in the house. And then Julio stops and he's like, what do you mean Jack was in the house? Jack can't have been in the house. Jack's away. And she says, I thought the same, but I spoke to Jack. He was there. I did forget a rule, but it was not turning the TV static on. And Julio backs out the house and he's like, okay, you've got yourself into some deep shit here. I don't want to be a part of it. And he's like, good luck, and walks away. But he says to her, that wasn't Jack in the house. So for some reason, she has the idea to go back to the house because she's like, if it wasn't Jack, an intruder's in there. And when Jack comes home and finds out that I let a intruder in the house, the things have been stolen, he's going to kill me. So I need to make sure the house is fine. So she goes to the house. Initially, everything looks fine until she goes into the kitchen and it is trashed. All the food in the house has been eaten. The power's off, but the hob is still hot, meaning that somebody has recently cooked here. Somebody's cooked here. Man, it's so late here in the UK and I'm so tired. She's on edge, thinking someone's in the house, and she does more checks and she notices that the cupboard door at the end of the hallway is closed. So she feels like a bit of a relief, thinking all the weird shit happens when that cupboard door is open. So maybe someone was here, but now they're not. It leads to like a secret annex or something, she's thinking. Walks into other rooms, and when she walks back out, she notices that the cupboard door is now open. And she's like, holy shit, someone's in the house, I need to get out. Making her way back through the house, and she bumps into Jack. Well, the Jack that she saw the other day. And she's so apologetic. Just doesn't know who she's speaking to, but she knows that she needs to apologise and get in their good books. And he just says, oh, you shouldn't be here, but you shouldn't be saying sorry. I should be thanking you. And she just doesn't understand what's going on. They have a bit of a conversation where basically he just keeps on saying, thank you, though you shouldn't have come back. This creeps her out and she tries to leave, but she can't because the doors are locked and the keys aren't opening them. The conversations that she's having with this Jack aren't necessarily bad. They're just a bit creepy. And she thinks maybe I can just talk to him to let him to get me out because I don't know what's going on, but I'm scared. So she walks through the closed door and she goes downstairs and it's leading to her basement. And she's thinking this is going to be a hole. There's going to be things in there that I don't want to see. And when she gets down there, it's like a normal little apartment. And Jack sat there just watching TV. And she's like, look, I don't know who you are, but Jack's going to come back and I need you to let me out. And he's like, how do you know I'm not Jack? And she's like, because Jack's not here and he's texting me. And he's like, no, you've been texting someone, but how do you know that that's not me? This conversation plays out for a good long while. So she doesn't know who she's spoken to all along. Doesn't have a clue who Jack is, who Jack isn't, who this person is. She's just got herself into some shit. She goes to call the police because she's like, I don't know what's going on, but I know it's not right. I'm getting out of here. As she reaches for her phone, Jack lunges and knocks her out. When she comes to, she's laying on the sofa in the lounge. Jack's now standing over her. Now he's very apologetic, saying, I told you, you should have never come back. You should have never have come back. She noticed that her arm is quite sore and she looks in her arm and she has stitches and she's like, what the fuck have you done to me? What have you done to me? And he just apologises and says, I had to get out of this place. I had to leave. He then gets up and leaves through the front door. She tries to follow him, but she's in excruciating pain in her arm. Like, so painful. He's just so apologetic and said, it's been 8 months. I had to leave. I'm so sorry. She goes back in the house and she sees the list of rules that was laid out for her the night that she stayed there. At the bottom, there's a green post-it note, handwritten by Jack, saying, I'm sorry. Hopefully you won't be here for too long. Someone always forgets the rules. Julio will be round to feed you. What the fuck was that story about?
And I'm not gonna lie, when I was listening to this story, I didn't really think it had anything to do with ghosts. I was genuinely thinking that he was involved in some kind of like crime, or it was like, because she was talking about like packages and stuff, I was thinking that maybe it had something to do with like drugs or shipping something illegal, and he was tasking her with doing it so it couldn't come back to him, until we got to the part with the house. And then I realized that it wasn't that at all. I realized that there is something going on in this house. By the end of the story, I was left with so many questions. I wish this was a movie. I wish there was more to it. I actually sat there and stared off into space for a few minutes because I had to process everything I just heard. Obviously, by the end, I think we can all come to the conclusion that this is not a real life story. But it seems almost as if the girls are a sacrifice, somehow to get the last person out of there. It makes me wonder if Jack was the one trapped inside the house and was running all of this, then is she gonna have to try and pay someone to watch the house too? Or is Jack an entirely different person and is now looking for, I guess, a new sugar baby to run his errands and watch this house? And if they mess up the rules, they'll come in contact with her one morning like she did with Jack. Maybe that guy wasn't Jack. Maybe he was just pretending to be Jack. I don't know. Like, I have so many questions, but this is such a good horror movie. And imagining myself in that house, once he started getting into like the sketchy part of the rules, I don't think I would have done it. I mean, I know I definitely would not have done it. Because unless you're paying me like $1 million, I genuinely have no interest in staying in a house that seems to be haunted or has some kind of weird stuff going on in it. no thanks. Like, I'd need to be paid more than $1,000 a night to babysit that kind of a house. I hope it's a situation where she can, I mean, not that it's good to trick someone else into being trapped in there, but everyone for themselves, am I right? So I hope it's a situation where if she tricks someone else to take her place, then she can go back to her normal life. It's not like she's like died or something. I don't know. This whole story, like, it's so good, but also, again, I have so many questions. Our final 3 TikToks of the video are by the user Joelle Reads, who tells us about a haunted house her and her family rented for years when she was a teenager.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Boy, have I been waiting for a trend like this, because everything that I'm about to tell you are true events that transpired to me and my family from October 2011 until March 2014. So this is the house in question, and I was able to find it online. We rented it through a rental company. After about a week of us moving in, cleaning up, we get a call from this lady who's actually the original owner of the house, and she asked us, hey, can I please stop by to see it one last time? So of course we didn't think anything of it. We're like, of course, stop by, come see it. So it turns out this lady was very sickly. I don't remember what illness she had, but she was leaving for treatment and the prognosis wasn't looking good. And she was telling us different memories she had with her family in that house. And once we get into my room, it was green and it had this cute little picket fence floral. This is the only picture I have. It's not that good. But it had little bunnies and stuff. And she said, please, if you are going to change anything in this house, do not touch this room. I hand painted this mural with my daughter who passed away. Which at the time we didn't think anything of it. I had no plans of changing it, plus it's a rental. We didn't want to change anything about it. Now once this lady left is when things started to happen. Now everything that I'm about to tell you, as it happened, it continued to happen until we left this house. So at this point, we're about 2 weeks into living here, and I'm coming back home from school. I run up the stairs to the right. There's this office space, and the door was slightly open and the light was on. So I just turned off the light and closed the door, and I go to my mom's room. We talk about our day, and then we're going to walk down the hallway, and we just stop. We stare at each other because I had told her about the light. The door again was open, and the light was on. So at this point, we kind of just walk over, we step into the room. There's nothing in there. We said, oh, how weird. Turn off the light, close the door. Now from here on out, there's little sprinklings of this light is on, this door is randomly open, after you had closed it or turned off that light. Nothing crazy. After that, about a month or 2 in, I had a little miniature pinscher. Her name was Susie. She would start barking all the way at the bottom level towards the garage. Now, the way the house was laid out is that there was a 2-car garage. You would go in and there was a second living room, go up some steps, kitchen, living room, dining room, and then you would go up the stairs and it was the 4 bedrooms and the bathrooms upstairs. But all of a sudden, Susie would start aggressively going downstairs and barking at the garage door. We didn't pay any mind to this because we thought, oh, maybe there's a lizard or some sort of animal or whatever in the garage. Until one day, my dad started seeing this creepy crawl space in the garage. The door would be open. Now this happened about twice. Mind you, this is weeks, maybe months apart. So we don't really think anything of it. Maybe it's a raccoon that crawled out of it. I don't know. Until one day, Susie had been barking at this door once or twice a week. And one day she goes downstairs. Mind you, all the lights are off. She's barking so aggressively at the garage door, just going at it. And all of a sudden we hear a yelp, just ah! And she comes bolting up the stairs, goes all the way up the second set of stairs, and goes into my parents' room under the covers in her bed. At this point, we all look at each other and we're like, what the hell? We check her, she's perfectly fine. And then from here on forth, she still barks, but she would bark from the steps in the kitchen going down into that second living room. She would bark from there. She never went back to the garage door again. Then the next thing that started happening is we would hear just stomping up and down the stairs. And we would be like, what the hell is going on? And a lot of the times it was happening when everyone was in the house. So we were just excusing it as, oh, it's my dad, oh, it's my mom. Or my mom would think it's me, and vice versa. Until one day It happened to all of us individually when we were by ourselves. So I would hear stomping going up and down the stairs, but I would be home alone. That continued on, and we said, oh, okay, well, I guess there's spirits in the house. Whatever. There's nothing you can do about it. We didn't feel any negative energy or anything, so we, again, paid it no mind. And then, I guess we must have had a little trickster spirit. All of a sudden, things would start missing and then reappearing. So let's say all of a sudden you open the drawer in the kitchen and all of the spoons are gone, and they would be missing for 2 or 3 days, and then you would open it back up and they would just magically reappear. So this happened the whole time we were there. You know, we didn't pay any mind to it. It's innocent, whatever. After the first year is when things started getting progressively more intense, more aggressive. I would be home alone after school in my bed doing homework, either with the door closed or the door open, but I started hearing scratching on my door, just a scratching sound. And, you know, I thought maybe it's Susie trying to get into the room. Until one day, those scratching noises were happening while I was home alone, and the door was closed, and Susie was sitting next to me. You know, I would just wait at that point until my parents got home from work and then get out of my room. Never any scratch marks or claw marks or anything. Soon after that, I started experiencing a lot of seeing shadows in the hallway or feeling like something was watching me while I was taking a shower. And then I talked to my mom about it, and she said she saw the shadows too. My dad eventually started seeing them, and it was always of a man in a suit. He had a top hat and he had a suitcase, and you would only ever see his shadow in the top hallway, or you would see his shadow while you were taking a shower, and you would open the curtain and there would be nothing there. And that was the absolute worst, just feeling and knowing you were being watched. Then one day, again, I'm by myself, my parents still aren't home from work, and I'm upstairs in my room with Susie, and mind you, the garage is directly under, so whenever someone comes home, you can kind of feel a slight shake and hear the garage door open and close very clearly. So at this point, you know, Susie hears the garage door open. She goes downstairs all excited to say hi to my parents or whoever it is coming home. I'm still doing homework, so I'm not focused too much on it. And I literally hear the garage door open. I hear my mom with ruffled bags, and she's like, Joelle, come down here. Help me with the groceries. I'm like, okay. I go downstairs. My mom isn't in the kitchen. I just find Susie staring with her head little cocked over at the garage door. And at this point, I start shaking. I'm like, Mommy? No answer. I open the garage door. It's empty. The garage is closed. No one is home. At this point, I bolt it upstairs, lock myself in my room, and I do not come out of my room until my parents come home. After this occurs once or twice more, and then after that I completely ignore it until my mom physically comes into my room and says, hey, help me with the groceries, because that freaked me out and I'm not trying to mess with anything like that. Not for me. And then one day, all of us are home. I'm in my room, my mom's in her room, my dad's downstairs in the living room watching TV, and all of a sudden, all of the lights start flickering on and off. All of the hallway coat jackets, all of the closets open up, and stuff just starts getting thrown out of it. Now, this is the closet you could see directly in front of the living room that my dad saw just rip open, and just everything was closing out. What the fuck? At this point, heavy, intense, dark energy was flowing through, and a few days later, we get a call from the rental agency letting us know that the lady who owned the house passed away that night. I'm literally getting goosebumps. And then after this, right here in that door, my mom had a little half curtain. After that day, there was this big, dark shadow of a man just standing in front of the door. At first, I thought maybe it was just my reflection or something, but all of us saw it. And one day, out of curiosity, we were like, what is that? Maybe it's a trick of the mind. So all three of us opened the door. No shadow, close it, full figure, shadow figure of a tall, big man just standing in front of the door. Now this shadow, it did nothing to us. It didn't feel any negative presence of it, but it was there until the day we left that house. Like I said, after we found out the homeowner had passed away, a lot of the activities started ramping up. It was almost every single day, and at this point it started getting more aggressive, but it was definitely more towards me. I was the one experiencing the most. My parents saw a few things, but I was experiencing a lot of the hostility. And I don't have enough time, so I have to do a part 2.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Alright, so we're back at it for part 2 of my haunting ghost stories. All of the events transpired from October 2011 until March 2014. Like I said in the previous video, after the homeowner passed away, a lot of the energy turned very heavy, very hostile, and I felt like a lot of it was directed towards me. So after that happened, I started having very vivid nightmares. They felt very real, very harmful, and every single time I had them, these were weekly, multiple times a week. I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I started experiencing sounds and feeling things in my room after that night. And what I mean by that is waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, the room is pitch black, and I would hear just, mind you, I had carpet in my room, and I would literally hear dragging feet stomps in my room, starting from my door that was closed all the way to where it would get to the head of my bed, and I could just feel a presence there, and I would just hide under the covers. I didn't want to look at it. I would pray and hope that whatever it was would go away. And after that, that occurred several times where I would hear that dragging just sound walking towards me. Eventually, it got into my bed. Whatever it was, I literally felt the weight of it lay next to me and into my bed. And again, I would just pray, and hope that it would be over. Sorry to get emotional or my voice gets shaky. It's just that was a moment in time that I was just so scared, and I feared for what would happen to me at the time. And it happened a couple times where whatever that was would get into my bed, and I would just pray until one time it rolled over onto me, and I just felt an immense pressure on my chest, just squeezing and literally indenting me into the bed, and I could not breathe. So then that happened a few times, and I would just scream, and my parents would run into my room, and the moment they did, whatever it was would just leave. Like, the weight would just be lifted from my chest, and I noticed that whatever it was only ever happened in my room, and if I had any company over, nothing would ever happen. So I was either always at one of my friends' house sleeping over because I did not want to sleep in my room, or I would have them sleeping over at my house, and then nothing would ever happen. And then I remember one time I had my girlfriend over. My parents were upstairs, and I was washing dishes while she was behind me just hanging out, and I had my hair in a claw clip. So I was just washing dishes, we were talking, and all of a sudden I feel hands behind me on my claw clip, and it just pushes my head down. And I was like, "Girl, quit playing." And she just looked so scared, and she said, "That wasn't me." And I looked at her, I said, "What do you mean it wasn't you?" She said, "That wasn't me. Whatever pushed you just now was not me." And I could see the genuine fear in her eyes. And I turned off the dishes, we ran upstairs, and we went into our room. And we kind of laugh about it now, but it was legitimate. Whatever it was, I felt hands, and it pushed my head down. Afterwards, we had an instance where my dad was helping out one of his soldiers who was going through a divorce. So he came to stay at our house until he got his stuff gathered and situated during that time. He was at our house for 2 days before he told my dad, "I cannot stay at your house anymore." He said, I might sound crazy, but ever since I was little, I see spirits. And he said, this house has a lot of spirits. The majority are good, but there's a few that are very malicious. And the only reason nothing bad has happened to you guys is because those good spirits are fending them off, but they're getting weak. You guys need to leave. So at that point, he just confirmed all of the suspicions we had. And like I said, the energy was getting a lot darker, a lot heavier, a lot more hostile. After he left, I had this one very vivid dream that I remember to this day. I woke up in my dream down the street. So I was walking, kind of jogging back to my house. Everything was dark. Everything was deathly still. Not a single cricket, bird, nothing. It's midnight. The moon was out. I run into my house and there's candles lit everywhere, just like if it was a ceremony. And then I see what I can only describe as a stereotypical demon that you see, the hooves, the red skin, the horns. And he said, I've been waiting for you. And I just bolt upstairs. He chases me and he grabs me in my room and he grabs me by the neck and he stares at me. And he just says, I finally got you. And I wake up, I can't breathe. I have a panic attack. Again, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. I tell my parents about it. So at this point, my mom is dead set on getting the house cleansed, getting some holy water. But before that happens, they're out of the house. I'm in the house alone again. And I have my room door shut at this point. I don't want anything entering my room. I have my dog, and all of a sudden I hear that scratching again, except it's very persistent. It's very intense, and I just yell at it. I say, leave me alone. Leave me alone. And the doorknob starts rattling and the door just bursts open. I get up, I shut the door, lock it. And then all of a sudden the scratching stops, the door handle stops. You know, I've shut the door at this point, and we have one of these. This isn't the one from the house, but it was an old metal ceiling fan like this. And all I hear is this big metal crashing sound. It sounds like a car crash. And at this point, I'm trembling. I call my parents and I said, can you please come home? At this point, my parents come home, and when I finally get out of my room, speaking with my parents on the phone, and I know they've come home and it's not spirits mimicking them or anything like that, I come out of my room and we look at that ceiling fan and it is fully dented in. Whatever it was, bashed it in with one punch or throw, whatever it did. And at that point, you know, we had the holy water, we fully cleansed the house, and everything died down. I didn't have the vivid nightmares anymore. Nothing was bothering me in bed or doing anything like that anymore. The only thing that was still there was, I guess, the little trickster spirit moving stuff around or hiding stuff, the stomping up the steps, and the shadow figure up front. After we fully cleansed the house and had someone come in and properly cleanse it using holy water everywhere and making sure to basically cleanse every couple of days, we didn't have any issues for the last few months of being there. And then we left March 2014. My dad got orders. He went to Texas. I was already in college, so I got an apartment in a different area in that town, and by far, that is the absolute worst experience I've ever had with anything paranormal. Hey y'all, so I'm making this video to just go on ahead and answer a lot of the frequently asked questions that I've been seeing in the My Ghost Stories Part 1 and Part 2, just to clarify those. A big one I'm seeing very commonly is, why did my parents leave me home alone so often? And honestly, I will stand by no slander to my parents because they are the most amazing human beings to ever exist, and I love them both so very, very much. So the reason being, this was just circumstance. They both worked 9 to 5. My dad was in the military, my mom was a nurse at a clinic, and I was a full-time student. When I was in high school, my bus would come drop me off at around 3:30, 3:45, so I would be alone for about an hour, hour and a half. And then in college, I made sure to schedule all of my classes they would be done by 12 or 1 p.m. and there was only so many things I could do on campus. I'm quite antisocial, so I would just go home, and I wanted to hang out with Susie. I didn't want to leave her by herself, and yeah, that is why I would end up being home alone. A lot of people are asking where the house is located. It's located in North Carolina, but I'm not going to share the county or the city that it's in just because people can be a little weird with that type of information, and this home actually sold 2 or 3 years ago, so yeah. Why didn't we cleanse the house earlier or leave the house sooner? And the reason being was just because at the time, this stuff was very spread out throughout October 2011 to March 2014. And it's really weird to say, but I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of these videos, and in the strangest way, you do end up getting accustomed to this stuff, unfortunately. And at the time, we were really just trying to ignore it, see if it would go away. We would do praying wasn't really working. And then, like I said, towards the end of part 2, when that stuff was happening to me, was when we decided to finally cleanse. So I guess you could call us a little slow, because we should have cleansed way earlier. Another question we get a lot is about the original owner of the house. Why did she come visit the house? Well, we let her visit the house because she called us, and she was just a really sweet lady. She was probably in her late 30s, early 40s. We felt no negative energy from her. She was just very sweet and just talking about the different memories in the house. I do not remember what illness she had. No, I did not ask her what her daughter passed away from because I felt like that's an invasion of privacy. And no, I do not know why the rental company called my parents to let them know that she had passed away. I personally believe, at the time I was like 16 or 17. I didn't handle those phone calls, but I think it was probably having to do with contractual agreements with the rental company since the owner passed away. I'm not sure. Right before we get to the pictures, I do want to preface this with, no, I did not take any pictures of the Hat Man. I did not take any pictures in the upstairs hallway where I would see the shadows or the dented attic ceiling fan thing. I did originally take a picture of it and sent it to my friends when the incident occurred. They remember receiving it. I do not have that picture saved, neither do my friends. And also I did not take a picture of the shadow man that was in the front door at the front of the house because I don't want that in my phone. Lastly, a lot of people were asking why I went online to find pictures of the house, and the reason being is that we didn't take that many pictures. Mind you, it's 2011 to 2014. Taking pictures wasn't like it was before. Dude, I had an iPhone 4 and those pictures were very grainy and blurry. So yeah, I thought you guys would prefer the higher def quality pictures. But anyways, here we go. Here we are starting off with little Susie. This was my miniature pincher. She was the cutest thing ever. Super loving, super friendly, quiet, cuddly, just adorable. Unfortunately, Susie is no longer with us. This was many years ago, and she was the best dog ever, honestly. Now, getting into the house, this is the only picture I saw that my mom had posted, and it was while she was in the passenger side while my dad was driving up the driveway. And that's the front of the house. This is the side of the house, as you can see, in the 2-car garage. Now, within that garage is where that creepy crawl space was. I do not have any personal pictures of the inside of the garage or of that crawl space, which is why it was awesome that I was able to find that online. Right, this is a picture of my brother and my mom in that bottom second living room area. So, as you can see, the door without the window and the little latch is the door that led into the garage. This is a family picture of us. This is in that little set of stairs that goes down into that second living room that connects to the garage. Then you go to that second main level of the house that goes kitchen, dining room, living room, and then upstairs is where all the bedrooms and bathrooms are. Here's a picture from our living room that you can clearly see the front door that has that little half curtain I told you guys about, and you can slightly see that coat closet. Here's a picture with my dad. It's a lot clearer to see that coat closet that you could clearly see sitting in the couch in the living room that my dad saw rip open and throw a bunch of stuff out. And another picture from one of our Christmases. You can clearly see that coat closet. Now, this is the original picture I found initially when I made my first post, where you can see that mural that the original owner had painted with her daughter who passed, and I found some more pictures. a very grainy iPhone 4 selfie. You can see the picket fence in the back. And then here you can see the rest of that picket fence going down, and you can see the cute little bunny. Finishing off strong, another picture of little Miss Susie. This was in my bed in that room that has the little mural in it. And well, that's kind of all the pictures I have for you guys that show those key areas from within my story. If there are any additional questions, go on ahead and leave them down below and I'll try to answer all of them. Thanks, guys.
This story also has me coming up with theories to explain all of this, because I feel like the woman who owned the house had to have known there was something going on there. I feel like maybe it wasn't like she was coming to say goodbye to the house. Maybe she was coming to like officially cut ties with the entities or something. And maybe the reason why she didn't want them to paint over the mural was because there was some kind of like protection. Obviously that room was kind of a safe space for her if she would hang out there and hide until her parents were home and actually proved that it was them that was home. Maybe the like cutesy design on the walls had something to do with it being a place where she felt comfortable hiding out in when weird things were happening in the rest of the house. I understand her point about things being so spread out that it wasn't necessarily a cause for concern, but I feel like some of those things, even if it was spread out from other things, seem serious enough that I would definitely consider looking for another place. I understand that some people's situations are different and you can't necessarily afford to just up and move in the middle of your lease and break the contract and pay the penalty and everything. But since they were there for years, at some point I'm sure their lease was up and they could have maybe found another place. Again, as I say that, I understand moving's expensive. Believe me, I just moved cross country and that was, it pained me a bit. So maybe it just wasn't in the cards, but I feel like the stuff that had been happening, some of it was concerning enough that I would definitely have looked into the possibility. Since it seemed to affect her more than anyone else, I really do think it was trying to attack her, control her, possess her. Obviously, we don't know what its intentions were, but it seemed very fixated on her, and its intentions did not seem good, no matter what they were. I feel like we can all agree on that. I'm glad they've removed themselves from that situation, but I do feel like the woman who owned the house knew about it. I think she knew that there was something going on in the house. And for whatever reason, that had to do with why she wanted to say goodbye to it. And I think the fact that she passed also for sure correlates with activity getting crazier. I mean, I don't know. We'll never know her involvement in any of this because obviously she's gone. She can't speak for herself. But I do feel like she was aware of the kind of entities and things that would go on there. I feel like this is a wonderfully terrifying one for us to end on. Let me know your thoughts on any of the TikToks I shared with you today. Let me know which one was your favorite. Let me know your thoughts on any of them, if you can debunk anything. Feel free to tell me. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I will pop a couple of video suggestions on the screen here for you to watch next. Please click the subscribe button down below and turn on most notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and most Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. I will not be seeing you guys this Wednesday, so I hope everyone has a very safe 4th of July. I witnessed a building down the street from me burn down on 4th of July one year from fireworks. So I'm a little traumatized and I would just like to remind you all to be safe. Let the professionals handle those. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next Sunday. Bye.